One Piece Blades of Fire Chapter 181-200. Chapter 181 Read the Aloof. Princess Yi, time is running out, the bomb is about to explode, I'll leave with you in my arms. Zhang Yang said with a solemn expression, but the next moment he saw that Yi was still there, and Zhang Yang was taken aback. Princess Yi, do you mind? No, I'm thinking, it's not all evil people here. Princess Yi looked at Zhang Yang and said, this place is about to explode, we can't let them die. Yeah, get us out of here. After we go out, we will definitely change our wickedness, be a good person, and go to Fishman Island to thank you. Hearing Otoji's words, all the prisoners became excited, and the voices rang in an endless stream, holding the prison railing in front of them and shaking constantly. But how to distinguish between good and bad? To save them, wouldn't it endanger the world? Zhang Yang's face is solemn. Although he has become a pirate now, the justice in his heart is still there. He will not allow such a group of extremely vicious pirates to cause harm to the world. Don't worry about this, my perception can tell the difference. For the most evil people, it depends on their luck, whether they can survive this explosion or not. Zhang Yang sighed. Hey, Princess Yi, time is running out now. There are always bad friends in a cell, do we still have to choose patiently? Now, either all die or all live, make a decision as soon as possible. Zhang Yang asked Jinbei to rescue the backbones of Fishman Island who were detained together in Impel Down, and then everyone looked at Princess Otoji together, until at a certain moment, her eyes were no longer complicated, and her expression became firm. Let's rescue together. Quote. At this point, everyone in Impel Down had already evacuated, and Zhang Yang could not find the key, and only Zhang Yang could split the prison railings. Zhang Yang breathed a sigh of relief when he reached the two deepest prison doors. Boy, can you help me and remove the damn sea stone's shackles? Zhang Yang didn't even look at the figure walking out of the two cells, and scolded directly, it's a matter of benevolence and righteousness to let you out, don't ask for this, be careful that I will kill you. But Zhang Yang's voice stopped in the next moment, and he saw the figure walking in front of him. This was a man in a prison uniform, with a beard and a hat on his head, with a pair of horns on his face. His face was full of wrinkles. He looked to be at least 40 or 50 years old. World Destroyer, Waldo. Zhang Yang's face became solemn. You must know that Waldo is a person from an era such as Whitebeard, Roger, Golden Lion, Garp, etc. He is not only a legendary pirate, but his strength is comparable to those mentioned above. I didn't expect you to know me. Waldo Isho, after cutting off the shackles that bound his hands and feet with a knife, said, this is natural, and your old friends are outside now, such as Whitebeard, Golden Lion. World Destroyer, are you interested in overthrowing the world government? Waldo's twisting movement stopped suddenly, and looked at Zhang Yang solemnly, and at the same time, another figure came over. Can you do the same for me? The voice was very soft, but shocking. The human soul is exactly the same as the mysterious voice. Read the Aloof. I didn't expect you to be caught, ha ha ha. When Waldo saw the figure with the same old and slack complexion, he laughed out loud, but Zhang Yang was stunned for a moment, and kept searching for the name in his mind, but he couldn't understand. Who is Read the Aloof? This guy is a pirate of the same era as us. If he hadn't been caught, he would have been Roger's biggest competitor for One Piece King of Pirates. At that time, they were only stronger than Whitebeard. Zhang Yang's eyes shrank suddenly, and he began to seriously look at this man. You have to know that Whitebeard was the strongest man in the world when he was young, and this Read the Aloof is only stronger than him, which is terrifying, but it is not. This man is special. He has no muscles, is skinny, and has a sickly white skin. In addition, by the way, his face is quite bat-like. Zhang Yang secretly said, maybe the real person doesn't show his face, and he will be able to see it when he shoots. Zhang Yang didn't talk nonsense anymore. After all, time was racing now, but when he saw that the elevator in the only passage was crowded with people, Zhang Yang's face became ugly, but this result was expected. After all, there is only one elevator. When Zhang Yang came, He broke the elevator, and there were a lot of people on the 6th floor. They were stuck there all the time, and no one was allowed to get out first. Fought. And the people who got Seastone's handcuffs off, especially the Logia demon-capable ones, left here first. Only 2 points away. Zhang Yang lowered his head and glanced at his watch. His expression became more and more anxious, and he shouted gloomily, "Fuck me, get out of here." However, Zhang Yang's voice didn't play a big role. Instead, he provoked some pirates to kill him, some of whom Zhang Yang knew, such as the evil King Pizarro, Katerina Tippin, etc., who all joined the Blackbeard pirates later. Group of pirates. Boy, although, thank you very much for saving us, but don't be too arrogant. Don't be so angry, be careful I kill you. Seeing this mermaid reminds me of Fishman Island. I can play there after I go out this time. These people didn't fight Zhang Yang either. After all, they also knew that if Impel Down exploded, they wouldn't be able to survive, so at this moment, after giving Zhang Yang a ruthless warning, they directly fought against the pirates who were blocking the front. Looking for death. Seeing that Zhang Yang was about to shoot, Valdo picked up a piece of gravel and said, "Leave it to me." "Waldo, don't worry, I've been trapped for so long, I'm already old. These people can be used as my nourishment." When the sound came out, the figure of Red the Aloof suddenly changed, and it turned into a blood-colored bat as visible to the naked eye in the next moment, flapping its wings and biting on the neck of a vile pirate. Zhang Yang was dumbfounded to see that the old face of Red the Aloof was getting younger now. Chapter 182 Gorosei, 5 Elders' Reappearance. Red the Aloof wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his tongue, head, and when he showed a weird smile, everyone present, including Zhang Yang, shuddered. Looking at the lifeless skin and bones lying on the ground, and looking at Red the Aloof, whose face was a little younger at this time, at least the wrinkles on his old face were disappearing, Zhang Yang couldn't help being horrified. This devil fruit is too bad. This kind of devil fruit can not only restore its appearance by sucking human blood, but even Zhang Yang is keenly aware that after absorbing this person's blood, the aura emitted by Red the Aloof is obviously stronger. Go to hell. When a few corpses all turned purple suddenly fell from the elevator corridor, a cold voice suddenly came out, everyone's expressions changed, and before they could react, a purple, black liquid suddenly filled the elevator corridor. Open. The first few people who came into contact with them all turned purple instantly when they were covered by these liquid body, and their movements slowed down rapidly. Even if armament hockey was used immediately, as the steam rose, their bodies were also keep rotting. This guy Magellan, the mantis catching the cicada oriole played well in the back. When Zhang Yang's voice fell, he drew his finger in the air, and in an instant, a transparent protective cover quickly formed, covering himself, Princess Otoji, Jinbei and the backbone of Fishman Island. Red the Aloof, Waldo, do you need? Zhang Yang only likes these 2 people on the 6th floor. He doesn't care about the life and death of the other pirates, but because the 2 of them are standing among the pirates, it is difficult for him to expand the defensive cover. It's just poisonous gas, it can't help us, and I have to suck some blood. Red the Aloof showed a bloodthirsty look, and then Valdo laughed. If we couldn't deal with this, we would have died in the sea. Red the Aloof and Waldo are not afraid, but the other people's faces are not good. Although they are strong, they are still extremely helpless in the face of Magellan's poison. His eyes, we can't get out, so you can stay. Just when these pirates rushed towards Zhang Yang and wanted to break the defensive cover, Valdo and Red the Aloof stood in front of them, and at the same time, a voice came out. Let's go first, the 2 of us have solved this. Well, come with me right now. Okay, pay attention to the time, there are still 1 minute and 50 seconds. At this moment, outside the Impel Down, the battle is in full swing. The dragon stands on the bow, watching the second and minute hands on the pocket watch keep beating, and his heart is also worried. Lightning is not imprisoned in the 6th floor, and has already come out at this time, fought with Marine. In the first 6 floors, not many pirates rushed out, but each one had its own method. For example, Lightning used his scissors to directly pull out a passage and rushed out. Enel and Ryoma had already killed the two world government powerhouses standing on Tianwang, organized Tianwang's artillery attack on Impel Down, and the next moment they fought with Magellan, who left. "Boss, why haven't you come out yet?" Enel and others have seen it at this time, and Zhang Yang has not come out yet, so they can't help worrying about it. During the battle with Magellan, they kept paying attention to the entrance of Impel Down, but fortunately, they fought 2-1 with Ryoma, for a while. Can also compete. 3 poisonous dragons appeared on Magellan's body, and he stared at Enel and Ryoma eagerly. He clearly noticed Enel's movements and sneered. Let's not mention the explosion. At this time, the 6th layer of infinite hell is probably already filled with venom. After adding the explosion, even if he was lucky enough to get to the entrance, he couldn't leave Impel Down no matter what. What do you mean? Enel frowned, and Ryoma also stared at Magellan, not quite understanding what he meant. That is to say, no matter what, he is already dead. Magellan's voice just fell, and the voices of the pirates burst out at this moment. Look, the god of death has come out. Otami. Princess Otahime. Mother. Fishman Island also saw Zhang Yang and others appearing at the entrance of Impel Down at this moment. They were overjoyed for a while, but they were only one step away. When Zhang Yang and the others were able to rush out of Impel Down, a light curtain suddenly blocked in front of them. This sudden scene made everyone stunned, and at this time, a figure in a suit also appeared in the air in front of Zhang Yang. Those who are judged dead by fate cannot escape this fate no matter what. You are very good, but if you can control it in our hands, you may be the youngest Marine Marshal now, and the power is only under us. Zhang Yang looked at this figure with an ugly face. This person was one of the Gorosei, 5 elders, the white long-bearded old man. The sudden appearance of the Gorosei, 5 elders and the light curtain caused everyone to stop their battles. Whitebeard and Golden Lion even more gloomy. Golden Lion directly sneered. To be old and not to die as a thief, now I finally see out. However, at this time, the Gorosei 5 elders did not pay attention to the Golden Lion, but continued to say to Zhang Yang, you not only involved others, but also killed yourself. Grass mud horse. Zhang Yang scolded one sentence. Liuran Ruahuo directly sacrificed. Benkai slashed forward with a knife after the residual fire, but what made his face gloomy is that this light curtain only has a circle of ripples, and even cracks did not appear. Jinbei and others also kept punching the light curtain. Zhang Yang not only used Benkai's moves, but also performed countless ghostly moves, but they were all useless. It turned out to be this hand. Everyone understands why Marine is not afraid of explosions. It turns out that from the very beginning, the world government Marine has only one goal, to kill Zhang Yang. Enel Ryoma and the others wanted to make a move, but Magellan took them in front of them. 3 poisonous dragons dripping with purple-black liquid. Body fell on the ground, and the steam appeared, penetrating the ice layer in an instant. There are still 30 seconds, you should be lucky, you don't lose your death. After all, you have created such a big limelight. Chapter 183 Race Against Time. Boom boom boom. Zhang Yang and others continued to attack the light curtain with various attacks, but there were only ripples and waves on the light curtain, and not even a single crack appeared. Stomping on. Seconds passed by, and several galloping sounds also sounded behind Zhang Yang. The second group of pirates came. When they saw the light curtain, when they saw Zhang Yang and their continuous attacks, they were all stunned. The next moment his face darkened. Waldo, Red the Aloof. Whitebeard was stunned. Soyu and Golden Lion were imprisoned together in Impel Down. No wonder, there has been no news of you doing anything wrong in the sea. Who are they? A Marine asked the Marine next to him, and the other side shook his head. I don't know, it's probably very early, I don't know them. At this time, a Vice Admiral appeared beside them and said, Valdo is the captain of the Ward Pirates, known as the World Destroyer, a man of equal fame with Roger and Whitebeard and the Golden Lion. He has the huge power to subvert the world government. Ambition. Back then, the world government's espionage organization, and Marine did not hesitate to cooperate with the pirates. The three parties worked together to arrest him, and then he was imprisoned on the 6th floor. The size, speed, weight, etc. of the objects touched or increased by 100 times. Because he was arrested years before Roger died, so very few people know this character, but don't make him small. This man is terrible in terms of fighting technique and ability. Whether Marine or pirates heard the news, their pupils shrank suddenly, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads, so the characters were captured by three parties together. One can imagine their strength. As for Red the Aloof being held longer than Waldo. When I was a student of Zephyr Admiral at the time, I heard him mention that it is said to be the strongest fruit of Zone Mythical, Bato Bato no Mi, also known as the vampire fruit. It is the strongest fruit of Zone, and his strength is even more terrifying. He has no accomplices. He gallops alone on the sea just to become One Piece, King of Pirates, but even if there is only one person, he is on a par with Roger, Golden Lion Whitebeard and other peak powerhouses. At that time, Marine's three strongest forces, Zephyr Admiral, Sengoku Admiral and Garp Vice Admiral, were dispatched to defeat them and put them in Impel Down. After learning about Red the Aloof's information, everyone was shocked, including Zhang Yang. He didn't expect this character not mentioned in the original anime to be so awesome, but now is obviously not the time to worry about it. Damn Gorosei, 5 elders, who set up a light curtain like an enchantment, trying to trap us here and get blown up by dynamite. After listening to Zhang Yang's explanation, the expressions of Valdo and Red the Aloof changed. Regardless of the huge battlefield in front of them, they all use their own moves. Momo is 100 times stronger, 100 times faster. Valdo's fist turned steel-colored, and when he punched out the next moment, the entire Impel Down even shook at this moment, but the light curtain just shook violently, and at this moment, Red the Aloof slapped the bloody color. 2 wings, one after another of blood-colored knife energy blasted towards the screen, and at the same time, a circle of sound waves came from his mouth and crashed on the light curtain. Although it works, but it's still not big. A crack appeared on the light curtain at the next moment, but it recovered in an instant. Isn't this Katarina Tippin, and the King of Evil? They are all about 300 million big pirates. At this time, there was another figure galloping in the passage. It was the third and last batch of pirates. All of them were strong in the 6th floor. The Marines were extremely fortunate. People come out to make trouble. I'm afraid even Marine is powerless. Enel and the others also wanted to help Zhang Yang, but they were all entangled by their opponents, and it was difficult to get out. Queen Mother, Brother Zhang Yang, Boss Jinbei. Shirahoshi's bean-sized tears kept lying on the deck of Noah's Ark, and he whimpered while sobbing. 3 seconds left. Gorosei, 5 elders looked cold. If you die, the endless battle should be over. Whoosh. At this moment of life and death, what can be done in just 3 seconds? Someone has taken action to tell everyone that Kuzan did not actually participate in the war. He was lying on a certain boat, but at this moment, his figure was already galloping on the ice surface. In an instant, it was in front of the light curtain. 2 seconds. I try to delay the delay of the explosion as much as possible. Kuzan seemed to have become an ice god. When his palm touched the ground, the area of Impel Down and the sea immediately began to freeze, and even spread to the 6th floor, causing the venom and the corpse to freeze. When there was only 1 second left, all the explosives eventually became ice block, and the explosion did not happen in the end. The Gorosei, 5 elders had actually noticed Kuzan's actions long ago, but he didn't do it, and he wasn't even in a hurry at this moment. This weird scene made everyone frown. The Gorosei, 5 elders trying to play. Do you think we didn't expect this? CP0 sneered and said, do you think that the explosives can't be detonated if they are frozen? I admit that you did prevent the explosion, but only temporarily delayed it. This explosive is the latest research result of our scientific research department. Even if it is frozen, it will start a spontaneous process within 30 seconds, thawed by the high temperature released from the inside, and then explode quickly. Hearing this, Everyone's expression suddenly froze because of the news that the explosion was stopped by Kuzan, and their faces became more and more difficult to look. As time passed by, Shirahoshi's tears grew more and more. Shirahoshi, my mother can't take care of you anymore. Princess Odahime forced herself to show a smile, but when the smile fell in Shirahoshi's eyes, it made him shout, no. At this moment, a strange power in Shirahoshi's voice suddenly spread. Chapter 184, Sea King Poseidon. When Shirahoshi's voice came out, all those with keen senses felt a very special energy spread out at this moment, and the most reactive ones were Gorosei, 5 elders. What? How is it possible? Gorosei, 5 elders, eyes shrank suddenly, looking at Shirahoshi in disbelief. Look at the bottom of the sea. Suddenly someone discovered something, looked at the seabed under the big hole in the ice, and lost his voice. What exactly is this black piece? The bottom of the sea is also. I'm here too. Could it be? A marine was dumbfounded. Everyone only felt that something on the bottom of the sea was constantly hitting the ice surface, and the sound was getting louder and louder. Under the shaking of the ice surface, the pirate marine couldn't stand on it. Staggered. Boom. And just at the next moment, when a behemoth smashed a big hole in the ice surface, the figure suddenly appeared, and in the next moment, it hit the light curtain that was constantly rippling. How can there be a sea king? This sudden scene made everyone unable to turn their heads. Before the words could fall, the ice layer suddenly collapsed, and a huge figure emerged from the bottom of the sea, lining up the pirate's marine on the ice. Hit fly. Damn, why are there so many sea kings? Quick, get back to the boat. The sound of panic kept ringing at this moment, and all the pirates, including Marine, gradually returned to the ship, watching the thrilling scene in front of them. All the sea kings rushed from the bottom of the sea, and the number was still increasing. One pirate swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and even if he got on the ship, he still said with lingering fear, looking at the scale, there are nearly 100 sea kings. Class. Even in the depths of the New World, more than 20 sea kings at a time have never happened. Could this be Marine's fault again? Another pirate stared straight ahead and shook his head dully. I'm afraid it's not. Marine's panicked appearance is not pretending. The sea kings continued to emerge from the bottom of the sea, so that everyone's fighting stopped, and each found their place, including Ryoma Enel, and others also returned to the Ark Proverbs. Boom boom boom. Watching hundreds of sea kings like hills constantly slamming against the light curtain, Gorosei, 5 elders were shocked, and when their eyes suddenly turned to Shirahoshi, there was more greed in their eyes. Whitebeard, this is the Sea King. On the bow of the Morbidia, although Golden Lion frowned, he could already see the horror in his eyes. It shouldn't be wrong, only the ability of the Sea King Poseidon can control such a number of Sea Kings. Whitebeard also looked solemn. Could it be, as Zhang Yang said, Shirahoshi has the power of a Sea King in his body? When Neptune turned to look at Shirahoshi, he remembered what Zhang Yang had told him before. Poseidon, the Sea King who has been looking for, is actually hidden in the body of the mermaid princess. This is Aquaman, terrifying ability. As the news continued to spread, all eyes were on Shirahoshi, and at this moment, the Sea Kings kept slamming their bodies or heads on the light curtain, like an earthquake, and the sense of the shock continued to increase. Even at this moment, the sea is surging, like a group of demons dancing wildly. One after another huge waves suddenly rushed towards the pirate ship warship. Dad. Whitebeard's pirate fleet was the first to be threatened by the turbulent waves, as if they were about to rip their ships to shreds in the next moment. Whitebeard's face sank, and when the long-handled knife was inserted on the deck, his hands seemed to be grasping the air and ripping a part suddenly down. At this moment, the rushing waves seemed to flow backwards, unable to fall backwards, and at the same time, the sea water began to split, and there were gaps in the middle, all of which were not on the same plane. These things actually happened in a short period of time, and as nearly 100 Sea Kings like a hill smashed onto the light curtain in an endless stream, although at a certain moment, the sharp-eyed eagle eyes suddenly changed, and he saw the light. The screen actually twisted continuously with the impact. The light curtain has been twisted. Let's shoot together and tear the light curtain. Hawkeye shouted loudly, and when the knife slashed down, a huge dark green knife chi burst out first, smashing hard on the light curtain. At the same time, Enel also turned into a thunder god, and punched the light curtain with a punch. Go! The quickest reaction was the group of death god pirates. All of them attacked the light curtain with the strongest attack, and when Kong and the others reacted, they only blocked the footsteps of Whitebeard and the others. Remaining fire Tadao Beatty on the ashes. Momo is 100 times stronger, 100 times faster. Dance of blood bats. Fishman karate shawa shokwan. Zhang Yang and the others also saw the continuous distortion of the light curtain, with a happy expression on their faces, and they did their best. It was applied 100 times and hit the light curtain. And read the aloof, one after another, blood-colored transparent bats smashed towards the light curtain as they waved their wings and hissed, and even raised their fists to their waists, and punched out. The third group of people who escaped, including the King of Evil, did not mean to make trouble for each other. Click. With the sound of one after another roar, a crack that was visible to the naked eye appeared in the originally twisted position above the light curtain, and the crack was getting bigger and bigger, but at this moment, the frozen explosive of impelled down suddenly exploded, as if it kept rising. The chain reaction is normal. Boom boom boom. One after another roars continued to sound. Impel down began to collapse instantly. A strong fire suddenly appeared from the corridor behind Zhang Yang and them, setting off a strong impact towards the group of people in front of the light curtain, violently coming. At a critical moment, at the moment of life and death, everyone's hearts are lifted up, abandoning the breath, only watching the figures of Zhang Yang and others quickly drowned in flames. Boom! Another huge roar sounded, and a shocking fire column shot up from the impel down inside the light curtain, and a huge mushroom cloud also appeared in front of everyone at this time. Chapter 185. Everyone watched impel down explode as a whole, turning into a mushroom cloud, and recalling the scene of Zhang Yang and the others being swallowed up by the flames, they all looked down. Mother! Shirahoshi seemed to be shouting a broken sound, and there were no tears in his eyes, and his face was as dead as gray. Turned into Enel, the god of thunder, his eyes were even bloodshot, and a long stick made of thunder and lightning appeared in his hand. At this moment, he smashed the Gorosei, 5 elders with a mighty force. Boom! When the thunder stick was about to hit the forehead of Gorosei, 5 elders, a light curtain that was the same as before suddenly appeared on his body. When the thunder stick hit the light curtain, there was a roar, but the light curtain only made a circle. Just ripples. Zhang Yang is dead, I'll give you 2 choices now. Gorosei, 5 elders suddenly exploded and shook Enel out. He showed a sneer. Hand over the mermaid princess. You can leave, as long as you don't do anything wrong. Our world government will not ask you to do anything. As for the second choice, you all stay here today, we will take the Sea King ourselves. When Gorosei, 5 elders' voice fell, everyone's expressions changed, and Neptune said openly, I will not hand Shirahoshi to you. You old man, don't think that I don't know your strength. Do you think we can't fight against you with so many people present? Golden Lion laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, there should be a limit to fooling people. If Death is still alive, I really can't fool you, but he is dead after all. Just after Gorosei, 5 elders finished speaking, a slap in the face suddenly sounded. I'm sorry, as the saying goes, if you don't die, you will have good luck. I think I should give you 2 choices today. Everyone was stunned for a moment, only to see one after another figure walking out of the nearly 100 Sea Kings, and the one walking in the forefront was Zhang Yang. After that, it was Otoji Jinbei and the backbone of Fishman Island, as well as Red the Aloof, Waldo, and even the King of Bad Administration. Princess Otahime. Mother. Fishman Island and Shirahoshi looked excited when they saw these people, but Shirahoshi didn't burst into laughter, but started to cry. Jinbei escorted Itsuki to Noah's Ark. It's worth mentioning on the way, a flame beam flew from the fingertips of CP0 Feet's officer and shot directly at Otoji. "Be careful, mother!" Shirahoshi shouted anxiously, but the beam of light quickly collided with a beam of flame burst out by Jongyang in the next moment, and exploded in the air. And because Shirahoshi's mood fluctuated violently because of this, all the Sea Kings immediately surrounded the ship where the CPO was located, and even shot them with the sound of their bodies. The warship was destroyed, and the CP0 officer fell directly into the sea. The scene is brutal. CP0 Feet's confrontation with nearly 100 Sea Kings in the sea was that although he killed some, he still could not escape death. His body was torn apart by many Sea Kings, and somewhere in the sea, blood filled. Impossible. On this side, when Gorosei 5 elders saw Jongyang's figure with almost no losses, their eyes narrowed and said, "That is a specially developed explosive, such a huge explosion, even armament hockey has no effect, and I have seen it with my own eyes. Seeing that you were still trapped in the light curtain at the last moment, how could you not die?" Shallow. Jongyang showed a cheap smile. It turns out, when the explosion started, and the flames rolled up with a huge impact and rushed towards Jongyang and others, everyone thought they were going to die. Even if there were cracks in the light curtain in front of them, it was still difficult to get out at this moment. But at the last moment, Jongyang's ghost approached, and a defensive cover suddenly appeared and enveloped everyone. At the same time, Jongyang's hands spurted a powerful hurricane backwards. Coupled with the powerful impact of the raging flames, it was fortunate that they rushed out of the twisted cracks in the light curtain and smashed on the Sea Kings outside the light curtain. And this is how things went. Maybe the ending is inevitable, but it may be a life of 9 deaths, but no matter what, Jongyang led everyone to escape one death with his strength. You give you 2 choices, but I'm not dead, so compare my heart to my heart, and I'll give you 2 choices. It can be considered to be benevolent and righteous. When Gorosei 5 elders' face was gloomy, Jongyang's voice continued. First, you beg me, let you go. Ha ha ha, this kid is very bad. Golden Lion laughed, and so did Whitebeard. Gulululu, if it's not bad or cheap, it's not him. You're immortal, please, we'll let you go. Please. By the way, you must kneel down and beg, and be sincere. Grandpa Pirates, please spare my life. Ha ha ha, it's cool to think of the highest authority in the world like this. All the pirates burst into laughter at this moment, and even many pirates imitated Gorosei 5 elders at this moment, kneeling on the deck to plead for mercy. Seeing Gorosei 5 elders' face more and more ugly, blushing, Jongyang raised his hand, tossed it, and said cheaply, "Don't get angry first, I haven't said the second one yet." The second is. Jongyang deliberately pulled the tone very long, and then said, "Even if you beg me, I won't let it go, and I will send you an old thing to the laboratory for physical examination. I still don't have a long memory after dying once." At this moment, a continuous buzzing sound suddenly came from the sky, which made everyone stunned, and at the same time, a voice sounded at this time. "Look at." With the exclamation, everyone raised their heads and saw the muzzle of the king in the sky. At this time, black quanta were constantly converging into an energy sphere, and in the sight of Jongyang and others, they saw the king on the king. When the figure was silhouetted, the pupils shrank. It's really a big face, but another old thief came. The figure of the heavenly king is the bald, fat Gorosei 5 elders. Jongyang looked at him with an unprecedented dignified expression. Gorosei 5 elders displayed a barrier, covering all the marine figures, while the pirate looked at the top of his head, the black ball that was already like an asteroid at the moment. His expression was full of fear. Chapter 186 Despair. I'm not old enough to Golden Lion, I can fake this thing. Golden Lion's face was gloomy, and he took a step forward. The figure roared out, and the gust of wind swirled, and went straight to the energy ball that gathered at the muzzle of the sky like a small planet. Although he knew the power of this thing, even if he had been imprisoned in Impel Down for a few years, if he backed down at this moment, then he would not be the terrifying Golden Lion he used to be. Lion Mighty Land Scroll. As the golden lion rushed out, his hands suddenly fanned, and the next moment the sea suddenly trembled violently, and a huge wave of about 20 meters crashed, turning into a water lion and leaping over the golden lion. It slammed into the asteroid with a bang. Gulululu, Shiki, don't think about stealing the limelight alone. I am Whitebeard. Whitebeard jumped up, and there was an air shroud on the blade gathered. Enel, who turned into Thor, also punched him. 2 million volts Thor. Momo is 100 times stronger, 100 times faster. Dance of blood bats. At this moment, Red Hair, Waldo, Enel, Red the Aloof, Ryoma and other powerhouses were the first to act, erupting their own extremely powerful offensive, all whizzing away toward the asteroid's giant ball of energy. And at this moment, when Zhang Yang stood up, all the spiritual pressure from the whole body poured out at this moment, all covered on the residual fire sword, rolled up the smoke, and the knife set off a monstrous temperature and slashed towards the target. Boom! When one after another attack hit the asteroid, an extremely powerful impact suddenly rose up, and the ripples continued to oscillate in the 4 directions. Even the defensive cover laid by another Gorosei, 5 elders, was twisted at this moment. There are countless cracks appearing. This scene made all Marines stunned for a moment, and their expressions became frightened, but fortunately, the light curtain automatically repaired and recovered in a moment. Boom! There was another loud noise, as if the whole world was shaking at this moment, and Zhang Yang and others who were fighting against the asteroid saw the area 1/10 the size of the planet under their offensive, and it had broken and disappeared. At this time, they were all happy, but at this moment, the cold humming of Gorosei, 5 elders sounded. Don't be self-righteous. When the words fell, the expressions of everyone suddenly changed. At this moment, a strong force suddenly came from the muzzle of the outer sky, and the planet received the force and suddenly smashed towards everyone in front of him. The weight of this planet is hard to estimate, even if it sinks down, but this sudden scene makes everyone not relieved. Even if publicity ranks 99 in the ultimate bondage, the second ban is the last move, but still useless. Everyone had almost no resistance, and they fell directly from the sky, and the ground was not the earth but the sea. Among them, there were many devil fruit-capable people. It is conceivable that if they fell into the sea, they would die. The inertia of falling from the sky made it impossible for everyone to stop the next scene. Hoo hoo hoo. Brother Zhang Yang. At this moment, nearly 100 sea kings were on the surface of the water, as if they were paved with their bodies to form a continent. The appearance of this scene is obviously that Shirahoshi used the terrifying ability of Sea King Poseidon again. Bang bang bang. One after another black shadows suddenly smashed from the sky to the land, paved by the Sea Kings, but the powerful impact made the Sea Kings scream one after another, but fortunately, they were rough and fleshy. Puff, puff, PFFT. When it fell, everyone was surging with chi and blood for the first time, and the blood spit out one after another, and even wanted to get up for a while, but the injuries in the body made everyone clench their teeth, and then they stood firm. But everyone was still not reconciled. Looking at the asteroid that was falling bit by bit, they rushed up again, but the result was very meager. Not even as good as before, but the damage was not even 1/20th, and it was smashed down again. When the injury was more serious, and when the planet could not even be prevented from falling, everyone was desperate. I didn't expect that my golden lion would have such a day. Golden Lion exhaled a puff of smoke from a cigar. Although he was smiling at this time, his expression was more lonely. He sighed softly, and Whitebeard remained the same. Even at this moment, everyone looked at the huge shadow that shrouded everyone above their heads. The fear in their eyes became more and more serious, and a sense of despair and powerlessness continued to fill their hearts. Everyone could think that if they let this thing fall, the result only 10 dead. If this thing falls, it will even affect the vibration of the Earth's crust. Will we be able to live by then? Even the strongest of them can't stop. Let's run away, Captain. A pirate trembled a little, and his voice trembled even more. He looked at the figure next to him intermittently, his expression seemed to collapse. I can't escape, it's over. The pirate captain's eyes were complicated, his expression was deadly, and he shook his head a little indifferently. Some pirates come here to fight, not for publicity, not to overthrow the world government, nor to save people, but simply to become famous and double the bounty. But the situation at the moment is completely out of their control. In order to be famous, they are unwilling to die. I don't want to die yet. Although more people faced it calmly, there were always some people who clenched their teeth and roared like crazy. When their eyes were scarlet, they slammed their fists on the deck, and tears kept streaming down. I surrender, I surrender. The sound of collapse and the fear of death erupted in an instant. There must be a way. The revolution is not over yet. There was a touch of persistence in Long's eyes, and even when he clearly felt the power of this blow to destroy the world, he didn't even think about death. What came to his mind was just how to find it in this seemingly dead-end way of life. Perhaps, because of this, Long chose the Revolutionary Army from such a family background and became the leader. Gorosei, 5 elders watched this scene condescendingly, with a sarcastic smile on the corner of his mouth. This is your life. Die. Chapter 187 is a big deal. I recommend another book of mine, The Endless Plunder of Martial Arts. The first world is the movie version of The Deer and Ding Ding Ji. Everything you want. Readers can try to read it. Dividing line. The Marine gathered in the light curtain. Standing in front are Kong, Fujitora, CP0, Magellan and other strongest fighting forces. Watching this scene at this time, Kong's expression is a bit complicated, especially his eyes fall on the silent Zhang Yang. At that time, Kong's heart was more bitter, and the corners of his mouth opened, but he didn't say anything. The commander of CP0 was quite different. He was cruel to Isho. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank this god of death. If it weren't for him, it would not be easy for so many pinnacle pirates to gather together. Their death will play an immeasurably significant role in our world government ruling the world. Rain Arrow Dragon took a cigar and exhaled a mouthful of smoke. Murder is innocent, let alone the life of a pirate. I don't know who is in charge. The Marines even made a noise at this moment, but when they heard what they said, there was a lot of sarcasm. These rubbish that will harm the world, they should have died long ago. If there were no pirates, the world would be prosperous and peaceful. It's fortunate that these dirty blood vessels are broken. Kong's face was gloomy, and at this moment, anger suddenly surged out of his chest. Shut up. Hearing Kong's loud shout, everyone was stunned for a moment. Everyone's voice was Sha Yan stopped. The commander of CP0 chuckled lightly. Marshal Kong, aren't they right? Kong did not speak. His face was gloomy, and although the Marines did not continue to speak loudly, the whispers and the cold sarcasm in their eyes were still there. Gorosei, 5 elders looked at Zhang Yang's lonely figure and sneered. If you were obedient in the beginning, there wouldn't be so many things happening. You killed not only you, but the entire group of pirates. Maybe from now on, there will be no more pirates. That man started an era of headaches, but fortunately, from you, it was destroyed. Boom boom boom. Asteroid black balls like tailed beast jade keep smashing towards the bottom, although the speed is slow, but there is no escape. And as the void around it was broken, revealing the dark makeup, Zhang Yang saw all of this and the despair of the pirates in his eyes, and listened to everyone's voices, and heard Gorosei, the words of the 5 elders, under Zhang Yang's complicated eyes, became silent, and at a certain moment, the voice came out a little hoarse. Everyone, this matter started because of me, no matter what the purpose of your coming here, but you always believed in me and came here. Even if this battle is not now, it will happen sooner or later. The world governments will one day reveal their true side. I must have heard of my experience in Marine. Why did I go from a deviant path and leave Marine to become a pirate? It's not that I'm forced to be helpless, but because I want to seek real justice, real freedom. Zhang Yang's words became the only voice in this world. When it fell in everyone's ears, even if they were resentful, those who bowed their heads and waited to die raised their heads at this moment and looked at Zhang Yang. People are inherently no noble or low, let alone 3, 6 or 9. Everyone has a different original intention to become a pirate, and every group is harmful to the herd, but if we even give up on ourselves, who can look down on us? Quote. Even if you die, you have to hold your head high. Even if you survive, don't give up the chance to ride the sea because you are afraid of death. Zhang Yang's little face showed a touch of firmness. After a pause, the fire smoke slowly rising and the residual fire dagger shook hands tightly. Thank you for coming here. This time, I will protect you. Zhang Yang's voice was like a rainbow, as if he was fascinated. At this moment, there was only this figure that was not tall in everyone's eyes. Everyone was shocked by the last 9 words. Because of the imminent crisis of death, because of Marine's sarcastic words, the psychological defenses of the pirates collapsed one after another, but at this moment, the cowardice, fear, and anxiety in everyone's eyes. All the negative emotions disappeared. After being a pirate for so many years, I found that we are far less hypocritical than Marine, ha ha ha. Suddenly, a pirate burst into laughter, and then it seemed like a chain reaction started, one after another sounded, quite deafening, shaking the world. I've already tied my head around my waist, I'm afraid a bird will die. When we were the most lonely and helpless, it was the Father who took over our sons and gave us the warmth of home. If we want to die together, we will accompany Dad in another world and be his son. The big deal is that people are dead and dicks, and what are you doing? Actually, death is not so scary, ha ha ha. Even the pirates who were originally mixed up at this moment, the blood in their hearts was ignited, and they were completely integrated into the group. Although this passion may only be for a short period of time, there is no doubt that at this moment, their posture, many years later, when they are old, when they recall, the corners of their mouths will definitely evoke a radiance. Glad to have made a worthy decision. Thank you for not being cowards at the most critical moment. Gulululu, he really is the man I admire. Whitebeard suddenly burst out laughing. Golden Lion looked at Zhang Yang, shocked and said slowly, Whitebeard, I finally know why this man has the charm to bring you all together. If, in this battle, we didn't die. Seeing that everyone stood up, not only their bodies, but also their energy, the corners of Zhang Yang's mouth could not help but rise. I must make this day no longer dark, let the ground no longer dry up, I must turn the world government upside down, I must let those 5 an old man kneels in humiliation in front of us. When the words fell, it was like a group of heroes, and the real shocks were. I wanted to do this for a long time. That's right, why should they be the only ones to take care of us? If I have the ability, I will kill us all. If I let Lao Su live, I will kill 8 generations of his ancestors. Chapter 188 Mutation Protrusion. What are they fighting for? At this moment, the dark asteroid was slowly descending, and an extremely oppressive momentum made everyone gasp for breath, but even so, the pirates changed their decadence, and their momentum was rising steadily, making Marine everyone was stunned for a while, and their ears were all shaken and a little squeaked. Obviously, they did not recover from this sudden scene. In this atmosphere, Long's voice seemed to stand out. I thought of. What way? The pirates were a little confused and didn't know what the dragon meant, but Zhang Yang reacted immediately, and he was overjoyed and asked hurriedly. After all, even if the momentum of everyone is mobilized, it is still difficult to stop the scene that may happen next. Although a single spark can start a prairie fire, under absolute strength, the number of people will only add casualties. At present, Zhang Yang and the others do not have a solution to the huge-tailed beast Jade in the sky, so the immediate priority is to reduce casualties as much as possible and preserve strength. Neptune meat is rough and thick, and can survive in the deep sea, and move quickly. Long paused and then said, so, if possible, we can hide in the mouths of the Sea Kings and let them carry us out of this sea area. Of course, this is also a gamble, but at least there are no dead and no life. Possibly. But at present, the most critical issue is how to ensure the smooth implementation of the plan. Zhang Yang frowned and looked at the mermaid princess who was with Yi Ji at this time. Leave this to me. Shirahoshi, first outbreak of Sea King's ability was accidental, but on the other hand, he has awakened, and Shirahoshi is more friendly with Jongyang. The Sea Kings that have become land, at this moment all open their mouths, revealing the huge space in them. What the hell is this? I don't want to be a deserter. Seeing the actions of Jongyang and others, because the enthusiasm that was mobilized has not disappeared, so at this moment, everyone is noisy, and they have the momentum of fighting to the death and swearing to the death. A bunch of bastards, I've never heard of leaving the Green Hills without worrying about no firewood. Even if you stay here, will you be able to stop this black thing in the sky from falling? Whitebeard scolded loudly, and Golden Lion followed suit. Disembark all of the Golden Lion pirate fleet and jump into the mouth of the Sea Kings. It's too late, don't blame me for not remembering the old feelings. As the pirates of the Whitebeard and Golden Lion fleet took their heads, one after another figure jumped off the boat, and when they carefully ran into the giant mouth of the Sea King, they were a little frightened. In the past, in front of them, the Sea Kings wanted to bite them as food, but now they took the initiative to run in, and they felt a little different for a while. The Sea Kings disappeared in the next moment, and all of them rushed into the sea. Looking at the huge black shadows constantly swimming on the seabed, the expressions of all Marines changed. This is the terrifying ability that Sea King can control. Did you just let them escape like this? If we don't pursue them, we must not let them live. At this time, the asteroid was already approaching, and Jongyang and his party were all at the bottom of the sea at the moment. In the mouths of the Sea Kings, Gorosei, 5 elders snorted coldly. If you let you run away, even if you miss one, it will be considered a failure. Quote. This Gorosei, 5 elders, who had set up a light curtain several times, at this moment clenched his hands and danced with his fingertips, until at a certain moment, the palm of Gorosei, 5 elders suddenly shot from the air, and suddenly a strange energy suddenly spread out. Even this energy directly affects the space, so that the void is distorted. When this palm was shot on the sea below, it caused a circle of ripples that continued to spread around. If the consideration is correct, when we travel in the deep sea, when an asteroid falls down and causes an explosion, we have a high chance of escaping. Because Shirahoshi is huge, he went into the water directly, but Jongyang placed a series of defensive covers on Shirahoshi for the sake of safety. At this time, Golden Lion Whitebeard, Long and other strong men and Jongyang were in the mouth of the same Sea King. In a dark space, the dragon's voice came slowly, and Jongyang's spiritual pressure was always covered in all directions. Can feel it at the first moment. Hopefully, but you can't take it lightly, and Jongyang's heart was relieved, and he started talking with a smile, but the voice was Sha Yan stopped at the next moment, and Jongyang's face changed. I'm afraid it can't be so fulfilled. Although they were in a dark environment, they couldn't see Jongyang's expression, but when they heard the change in Jongyang's tone, when observation hockey cast it, they all noticed something. At this moment, they all frowned and looked solemn. When this strange energy quickly enveloped all the Sea Kings, the surrounding space seemed to be stagnant for a moment, the sea water no longer flowed, and the swimming figures of the Sea Kings remained still, covering the figures in their mouths. Congeal. What's the matter? Why can't you move? When everyone noticed this scene, their pupils shrank suddenly, and even if they opened their mouths, they could not make a sound. Even a group of powerful pirates such as Whitebeard were at this moment. Even if the space is stagnant, everyone's senses are still there, and they all find that the asteroid has been smashed into the water. I am afraid that it will not be long before it will hit them. Under the vibration and explosion of the Earth's crust, the consequences are self-evident. Time passed by every second, even if Jongyang felt helpless at this moment, but there was no bleakness in his eyes. If time doesn't stand still, maybe I can really escape. But now, it's really worrying. I want to take action. Jongyang sighed lightly, but the vicissitudes of life sounded in his mind at this time. He was stunned for a moment. Jongyang's eyes moved to the surroundings. He thought it was Whitebeard and the others talking to him, but after thinking about it, now everyone can't speak. Still he thought it was a hallucination, but another helpless voice sounded in his mind. You kid, It's been so long, you forgot about me. Chapter 189 Virtual. Hearing this vicissitudes voice that was very familiar but could not be remembered for a while, Zhang Yang's mind couldn't turn around, but then he seemed to remember something. His eyes showed a touch of joy, and then Zhang Yang's mind was completely immersed in the space of consciousness. Even the flowing blade in the body, Benkai, is too much for the residual fire. Zhang Yang has never entered the space of Ryuran Ruahuo since he was in contact with Liuran Ruahuo when he was revived before, and he has truly mastered Shikai. Then he shouted nervously, "Captain Yamamoto. Are you talking? You ugly boy, have you forgotten me, and the things you promised me are too many." The fire smoke on the residual fire sword turned into an old figure, wearing a black tyrant, with a cross-shaped scar on his forehead, and the long white beard hanging down to the waist was tied with a purple belt. Although the figure is extremely transparent, who is not the captain of Yamamoto? Captain, you, soul, isn't it dissipated before? Zhang Yang recalled the previous scene. After the captain entrusted his last wish to himself, it had already dissipated, but how could it still exist in the flames? Zhang Yang couldn't help but suddenly became shocked. You boy, just want me to die. Captain Yamamoto laughed and scolded. Look, I'm dead, who is going to save you now? Don't, what can I do? I still want you to live forever. Zhang Yang was flattering, but the next moment was startled, his eyes widened suddenly. Wait. Captain, you just said, you are here to save me. Alas, I can't be relieved when I die. Captain Yamamoto sighed and his face became serious. The 5 people in this world, in fact, I have always been able to feel that they are all characters that are difficult for you to defeat. It is better for you to work hard to improve your strength, so I didn't do it at that time. Quote. However, now it seems that it is indeed time. Otherwise, if your kid is dead, who will avenge me? I'll give you all my remaining power now. When the voice fell, a stream of energy flowed towards Zhang Yang from Captain Yamamoto's soul body. As the energy continued to enter Zhang Yang's body, his spiritual body became more and more solid. This moment is also improving. Captain, even if you give me all your energy now, but... Although Zhang Yang is happy, his heart is extremely depressed. Alas, when time stands still, I am not standing like a wooden stake. Time is still, to be clear, it is to stagnate the flow of space. As long as you can launch an offensive that affects the order of space, you can completely touch this deadlock. Zhang Yang said bitterly, the key point is that I can't move it at all. Even if I understand the truth, I still need to ask you to teach me how to implement it. Look at you, what have you used my slack as fire? The commander-in-chief reprimanded, and then said, next, I'll tell you how you should be able to burst out the most powerful attack. Zhang Yang's consciousness space also seemed to use the law of time. When he opened his eyes, Zhang Yang realized that the asteroid had not yet hit, as if the conversation with the captain just happened just a moment ago. When he felt that the power contained in his body was stronger than before, Zhang Yang's eyes were filled with joy, and when his mind moved, Liuran Ruahuo appeared in his right hand, and suddenly flowed out from the gap between the teeth of the Sea King. When the flowing blade burst out, it directly suspended in the sea, and at the same time, the violent flame suddenly rose up and turned into a pillar of fire that reached the sky. At the moment when this pillar of fire appeared, the powerful flames and even the sea water evaporated, and the surrounding void distorted. Even at this moment, the stagnation of time fluctuated for a moment. And it was at this moment that Zhang Yang, including Whitebeard and other strong men, seemed to break the bondage, and then Zhang Yang's figure exploded out, grabbing the flowing blade in the sky-piercing fire pillar. He waved his long knife, and suddenly the sea suddenly flew out. A sea of fire appeared. Boom boom boom. And in the next moment, more than a dozen pillars of fire that reached the sky rose from the ground, and exploded without any hesitation. Marine and his group were moved when they saw a huge crater that was dry and startling in the sea, while the Gorosei 5 elders frowned, and the shock in their hearts was indescribable. Seeing that the asteroid had smashed into the sea, another Gorosei 5 elders said to the next one, With their current strength, they can't stop it. Everything should end. With the time still being broken, everyone can move. Whitebeard and the others looked at Zhang Yang's figure and couldn't help but be shocked, but at this moment, they couldn't help but ask questions, because the things above their heads were about to fall. Everyone, come out to fight, whether it is life or death depends on the last blow. Zhang Yang burst out, because this piece of seawater was burnt out, resulting in a cutoff. At this moment, he jumped up directly, and Zhang Yang's voice suddenly came out, void. When the voice fell, Zhang Yang's right face suddenly appeared with 3 blood-colored lines. The first stage of virtualization. Kuchiki Byakuya's eyes shrank, and he spoke again in astonishment, the second stage. Phase 3. In an instant, it has reached the 4th stage of virtualization. Seeing that the blood-colored lines on the right half of Zhang Yang's face continued to increase, and the momentum became more and more tyrannical, Kuchiki Byakuya lost his voice in horror. How did Zhang Yang become so strong? Everyone was shocked when Zhang Yang watched this scene. At this moment, he was stronger or even twice as strong, and they also keenly felt that the improvement was not over yet, it was still going on. Let's go to. Whitebeard's voice fell. He was holding a long-handled knife, and when the air enveloped the blade, he followed Zhang Yang's footsteps, and the air around him kept shattering and ejecting directly. And at this moment, the surrounding seawater, sand and stones all converged at this moment, turning into a lion when it collided with the asteroid, on which sat the golden lion. Chapter 190, Severed Fingers. The 5th stage of virtualization. Zhang Yang burst out with a powerful momentum. At this moment, whether it was his teeth or the only 4 shocking blood-colored lines on his left and right faces, he was like a beast. It seems that because of the blurring of publicity, even at this moment, there are red lines on the blade of the residual fire sword. It's a bit like the progression of a Super Saiyan. Zhang Yang murmured to himself. The fire smoke shrank suddenly at this moment, and the whole residual fire sword did not leak the slightest breath, and even the scorching heat that accompanied Shikai and even Bankai in the past seemed to be hiding at this moment. Like a very ordinary sword. When he came to the asteroid, the residual fire sword in Zhang Yang's hand slowly stabbed forward. What shocked everyone after that was that under this stab, it seemed that a devouring force erupted from the tip of the knife, and then it was the terrifying high temperature that is invisible, forcibly turning 1/5 of the area of the asteroid into nothingness. Boom boom boom. And in the next moment, the 3-colored lion, the sharp sword Chi, the thunder dragon beast, the red-haired western long knife, the long-handled knife that Whitebeard carried with the power of breaking the sky, etc., all crashed on the asteroid. When the powerful impact force spreads out like ripples in an instant, there are constantly split layers appearing in the 4 directions of the sea, as if the current is cut off. Although most of the pirates are just ordinary people, at this moment they are also raising guns, and the shells are constantly bombarding the asteroid. Because of the strong attack, the tyrannical aura of the asteroid has already been exposed at this moment, as if it will explode in the next moment, although his volume is less than 1/3 of the original, but it is no small matter if it explodes. 4 shots blood sealed. Zhang Yang motioned everyone to step back. At this moment, he stretched out his hand and pointed forward. When the black spiritual power gathered around the asteroid, it instantly turned into a huge black coffin and wrapped it in it. The assembled residual fire sword was inserted directly on it, and it disappeared in an instant, like a seal. How is that possible? Even the shock of the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders at the moment was overflowing with emotion, let alone the others. It's time for the 2 of you to be immortal. Zhang Yang stretched out his hand and pushed the black coffin away. When his eyes met the eyes of the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders behind him, VV's fangs like a beast opened, and the fierce light from his bloodthirsty eyes was cruel. Do you think you have the right to talk like this if you change your face? The Gorosei, 5 elders with long white beards had a gloomy voice. When he pointed at Zhang Yang, a curtain of light instantly enveloped Zhang Yang. Unexpectedly, a Sea King was also involved, but it was only a breath, and the Sea King did not even come out. With a voice, the 7 orifices bleed to death. I said, it's such an old thing, can you stop fooling people with such tricks? The imposing manner of the 5th order virtualization poured out unreservedly, and the light curtain that wrapped and advertised split a crack in an instant, and then the sound of clicking sounded one after another, and the light curtain collapsed and opened directly like a spider web. When the figure disappeared from the spot in an instant, it appeared in front of this Gorosei, 5 elders in the next instant, and even the Gorosei, 5 elders didn't react. Zhang Yang's speed at this time was several times faster than the original Shunpo. It is the ringing that can only be used by blurring. Click. When Zhang Yang threw a punch, Gorosei 5 elders was shocked, and even smashed a crack on the light curtain in front of him, and then before it was over, Zhang Yang took the residual fire sword and slashed it directly, but the other short man Gorosei, the 5 elders pointed forward, and a jet black energy beam burst towards Zhang Yang. Wherever it went, the void was twisted and ruptured, and it just came to Zhang Yang in an instant, and at this time, Zhang Yang had already slashed on the light curtain of Gorosei, 5 elders, and there was almost no obstruction. At the same time, a jet black beam swishes directly through Zhang Yang's chest. Publicity. This scene made the expressions of Whitebeard and others change. After all, they all saw the power of this beam. At this moment, when Zhang passed through his chest, he left a shocking hole, and even after passing through, the beam burst into the seabed. When it exploded violently, and when the smoke dissipated, a shocking giant pit was left behind. Originally, everyone was extremely worried about Zhang Yang, but when they saw that the hole in the chest that was shot through was restored the next moment, everyone was shocked, and the eyes of the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders shrank suddenly. This beam of light only stopped Zhang Yang's movements for a moment, but then the knife he lifted suddenly fell. Boom! Gorosei, 5 elders put their fingers together, and when they lifted, they directly clamped the tip of the residual fire sword, but at the moment of clamping, a light curtain appeared on the fingertips of Gorosei, 5 elders again, and it collided with the residual fire sword. When they were together, there was a loud noise, and the breath suddenly flowed out, setting off an invisible wind. It's been so long. It's supposed to be charged interest. When Vivi's sharp bone teeth opened, revealing a smile, the expression of Gorosei, 5 elders suddenly changed. Although the light curtain did not make a clicking sound this time, when a terrifying temperature appeared on the tip of the knife, the light curtain melted in an instant, and Zhang Yang's bloodthirsty eyes flashed, cutting off Gorosei, 5 elders' fingers. What? Marine sighed. They were all dumbfounded. Chi-Chi was breathing cold air, and his expression was full of incredulity. Marine was like this, not to mention the pirates. At this moment, Golden Lion, Whitebeard and the others were extremely terrified. A sensation, some can't believe this scene happening in front of you. As expected, his last death was almost chopped to pieces by the hands of the Gorosei, 5 elders with the knife, and it was split into 2 parts, but in such a short period of time. Whitebeard paused, looked at the figure in the sky, and then said, "This man. The growth rate is terrifying. Suddenly increased strength several times, and even the breath is very similar to Captain Yamamoto." Kuchiki Byakuya, his thoughts were surging, and a bright light burst out in his eyes. Zhang Yang, there must be news of the captain. The 2 Gorosei, 5 elders at the moment were a little dazed, and when they saw the 2 broken fingers, their faces turned ashen. It will be very miserable. Chapter 191 Gorosei, 5 elders retire. This scene especially made the Gorosei, 5 elders look furious. When the hand with the severed fingers stretched out suddenly, the whole body of Gorosei, 5 elders burst out in an instant. A strong deterrent force like the palm of the hand is suppressed from the sky to everyone. Under the suppression of this momentum, although Zhang Yang's figure in midair sank, but in the next moment, with the smoke rising above the residual fire sword, Zhang Yang's figure exploded forward in an instant. At the same time, a thick transparent light curtain suddenly appeared in front of 2 Gorosei, 5 elders. And the other Gorosei, 5 elders stretched out a finger forward, and when black energy was exuded from the body, it suddenly turned into a pitch-black behemoth in midair. Wherever it passed, the void distorted and vibrated, and the roar was deafening. He even grinned and went straight to Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang, we will help you. Whitebeard, Golden Lion and others could fall. Zhang Yang's voice spread from the sky. This is a personal grudge between me and them, I'll just come alone. Zhang Yang's current state is very good. His previous strength was extremely powerful. At this moment, he has mastered the skill of flaming with fire, and even the energy of Captain Yamamoto has been given to him. Today, he is even in Gorosei 5. The elders will never be at a disadvantage. Blurred semi-complete state. At this moment, Zhang Yang's whole body has bones appearing, and even his small face has really turned into bones. When the long white hair flows out of the skull, it grows rapidly. Boom. In this state, Zhang Yang slammed his fist out directly, and when his fist hit the light curtain in front of Gorosei 5 elders, the light curtain clicked continuously. When the light curtain exploded, the punch became everything in Gorosei 5 elders' pupils, and slammed into his old face. When it fell like a meteor, a soft, elastic light suddenly appeared under him. Curtain caught him. A punch fell. Zhang Yang didn't hesitate at all. He lifted the flowing blade like a fire, and when the fire smoke was collected into the knife, he suddenly slashed at the pitch-black beast from the waist. Boom. The pitch-black beast was divided into two, and the powerful swallowing force exploded instantly, and black cracks appeared constantly in the void, and it was about to sweep towards Zhang Yang in the next moment, but Zhang Yang did not change his face, and when the spiritual pressure all over his body was released, it suddenly turned into substance, and when it was enveloped in the energy flowing from the explosion, it suddenly devoured it. How is it possible? This is the voice of everyone at this moment. They did not expect that in the face of the two supreme rulers of the world government, Zhang Yang was not afraid at all, and even fought against them without falling behind. Who the hell are you? You can't beat him. Looking at this beast-like figure with white bones and white hair, the horror in the hearts of Gorosei 5 elders can be imagined. Although their intuition tells them that this person is Zhang Yang, but with such terrifying strength, they would rather believe that there is something else. People. After all, the speed at which Zhang Yang's strength has increased is really unbelievable for them. I, who used to be regarded as an ant, are now beating you like grandchildren. That's probably what the Gorosei 5 elders aloof don't believe. When Zhang Yang's sarcastic voice sounded, it made the complexion of Gorosei 5 elders change. Even at this moment, when the short Gorosei 5 elders was so angry that he was about to continue his actions, he was blocked by another Gorosei 5 elders. Forward. He kept staring at Zhang Yang, as if he was about to see a clue, and under the eyes of the Gorosei 5 elders, there was a complex, low voice. All marine and members of the world government, go back to their respective ministries. I bet you will die miserably, just wait, this day won't be long. The other Gorosei 5 elders frowned and opened their mouths to say something, but held back. If you want to run away, how old are you, and you still speak ruthlessly? Zhang Yang sneered, and the short Gorosei 5 elders said, take advantage of your chance to speak while you are alive. What, shall we go now? Are we losing? Don't these pirates just ignore it? Although shocked by Zhang Yang's strength, the decision of Gorosei 5 elders shocked the entire marine even more. Marshal, now is the time for us to destroy them in one fell swoop. Did we marine just run away in such a dismal manner? Kong shouted in a low voice. Shut up, go back to Marineford. After the Gorosei 5 elders marine and his party left, Zhang Yang couldn't help but let out a deep breath. The blood-colored patterns on his face, the bone teeth, and a series of virtual changes on the exposed bones on his body disappeared in an instant. Even when Zhang Yang stepped on the deck, his body softened, he stumbled and almost fell. Zhang Yang was not surprised by this scene. After all, it takes a lot of effort to erupt into a battle that can be stronger than Gorosei 5 elders, such as the aftermath of post-war weakness. But now Zhang Yang can't show weakness. After all, people's hearts are unpredictable, and it will be miserable if anyone comes at this time. I didn't expect Gorosei 5 elders to have such a day, ha ha ha. When I think of a group of Marines and 2 immortals leaving, I feel good. I feel that there is a god of death, and there will be a day when the world will be overthrown. Seeing Marine leaving, the pirates were all delighted, and Whitebeard even laughed and said, "Bulululu. Zhang Yang, when did your kid become so powerful that you scared the Gorosei, 5 elders away? We're off to Marineford." Zhang Yang just laughed. He knew that the Gorosei, 5 elders did this, saying that he was scared away by him, which was actually a bit of an exaggeration. The current situation is that the Gorosei, 5 elders can't help him, but he can't help the Gorosei, 5 elders, and if Zhang Yang fights a little longer, I'm afraid it's him who will die this time. The Gorosei, 5 elders retreated early, entirely because Zhang Yang's tough tactics had the upper hand in 1-on-2, coupled with the uncertainty of Zhang Yang's strength, and the fact that they lived too long and were too afraid of death. To achieve this result, all 3 are indispensable. To Marineford. Everyone was stunned and didn't quite understand. Golden Lion smiled and said, "This is the end of the Impel Down, and then the attack on Marine's lair, ha ha ha. It feels like my spring is here. How can there be so many battles? You will know when it arrives." Chapter 192, A Weird Scene. More than a dozen warships sailed on the vast sea, and their direction was heading towards Marineford, the headquarters of Marine, but the mood of the Marines when they came and when they went was completely different, and their expressions were bleak. It wasn't until a certain moment when the foggy door of justice appeared in front of Kong that he sighed, "It's finally here." Without Kong's order, the correspondent in charge of the liaison picked up the phone bug and called to the control room in charge of the door of justice. "Please open the door of justice quickly. Please explain your identities." The correspondent wanted to hang up the phone, but he couldn't help but be stunned when he heard the voice. Because there are countless cameras around the Gate of Justice, and Marshal Vice Admiral and the others are all on the first few ships, it should be clearly visible on the screen in the control room, but the other party still asked this question. The correspondent thought it was because of the fog and the line of sight. So he said again, "We sent troops to Impel Down, the Marine fleet led by the Marshal himself. We Marine didn't dispatch any warships, and the Marshal was in his own office. If we don't leave this sea area within 3 minutes, we will send troops to deal a devastating blow to it." These words made the correspondent sluggish, and his mind didn't react for a while. Seeing that he had come to the very front position of the Gate of Justice, but the huge gate fell silent, Kong frowned and turned to look at the correspondent holding the phone not far behind. His voice sounded gloomy. "What's the matter?" "Marshal Kong. This, that." The correspondent stammered for a while. "Could it be said that you are still sitting in the office drinking tea on the phone?" With a cold snort, when Kong strode over, he took the phone bug from the correspondent's hand, and just as he was about to speak, a loud shout came from there. "Sir, if we get closer to the door of justice, we will have the right to sink your ships at once. Single siren again, stop approaching, and leave immediately." Kong's anger that had been suppressed by Impel Down exploded when he heard the voice, yelling at the phone bug. "I'm Kong, you fucking open the door for Lao Su. I only give you 3 seconds, otherwise, you can just roll up the bed and roll it." The battery began to prepare, and the indiscriminate attack was carried out in 3 seconds, and the target was sunk. The voice of an order suddenly sounded from the phone bug. Kong was stunned for a moment, and vaguely aware that something was wrong. He said in a low voice, "Give the call to the control room." 3. Before the voice fell, a countdown sounded in the control room, and the phone worm in Kong's hand was hung up the next moment, but at this moment, before a Marine came to Kong, anxious words came out. "Marshal, no, our fleet is locked on target." Kong's face was ugly. At this moment, he finally realized what was wrong, but it was too late to think. There were countless shells bursting from all directions of Impel Down. Ugly face. "Bastard, is this going to rebel?" Cursing, throwing the phone bug in his hand, Kong shouted, "Notify the entire fleet, prepare to fight." Boom boom boom. Faced with the overwhelming amount of cannonballs, all the fleets at the scene hurriedly adjusted their turrets, and all the Vice Admiral dispatched, but even so, except for a few warships guarded by Marshal Vice Admiral, the rest of the ships suffered varying degrees of damage. Even one of the warships exploded in the next moment, burning with raging flames, and sank directly into the sea. Damn, connect me to the communication room and let the highest rank in Marine answer the phone. Kong's voice fell. The correspondent hurriedly picked up the phone bug, and after the rapid fluctuations, he shouted, "Let the highest-ranking person in Marine answer the phone. Please identify yourself." This sentences again. Seeing what the correspondent is still babbling about, Kong grabs the phone bug again and shouts, "Fuck, I'm Kong, now Marine who is of high rank, quickly get me on the phone." But as soon as the voice fell, the other party actually hung up the phone directly. Boom boom boom. At this moment, Kong's face is not to mention ugly. When several cannonballs smashed towards him, Kong's fingertips burst into several beams, and the cannonballs exploded directly in midair. Marshal, dozens of ships suddenly appeared in the waters behind. When a figure was holding a telescope to observe the conditions of the sea, he suddenly shouted, but just after the voice fell, he turned around and looked terrified. "All of them are the pirate ships that Impel Down has seen." What? Kong's pupils shrank. He came directly to the Marine, took the telescope, his eyes narrowed slightly. Not far from his sight, under the fog, dozens of ships appeared, and the few in front were the Whitebeard Sea, the pirates, the red-haired pirates, etc. When Kong lifted the telescope VV, he suddenly saw a dark shadow, his expression changed, and when he looked again, the thunder light shone. It was the flamboyant pirate ship, the Ark Proverbs. Found a lot of pirate ships. As these ships approached, all the warships became noisy. And at this time Kong looked ugly, and suddenly ordered, "All Marines prepare for battle." The warships leave the shelling area and directly approach the pirate ship. On the other side, following Zhang Yang's guidance, everyone slowly sailed towards Marineford, knowing that at a certain moment, the expressions of the pirates whose ships were monitoring the surrounding waters suddenly changed, and a voice came out, "There are more than 10 ships in front of you. Marine warships." Upon hearing this news, the originally relaxed atmosphere suddenly became tense, and all the pirates subconsciously picked up guns and long knives to adjust the turrets on the pirate ship. "I'm afraid it's Kong and their warships." Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Valdo, and Red the Aloof were chatting with Zhang Yang when suddenly the nervous voice of the pirates came out, and Whitebeard also spoke with a solemn expression. "What's the matter, anyway? This time we came to Marineford to fight with them, by the way." Golden Lion took a sip from the wine glass, then laughed loudly. "Order all pirates to prepare for battle, prepare to fight." Zhang Yang showed a strange smile. "Don't worry everyone, it's not annoying to fight and kill all day long." Chapter 193 Lao Su Don't Do It Anymore. Marshal Kong, we meet again. When Zhang Yang appeared on the bow, he looked at Kong and showed a smile, but when the smile fell in the eyes of all Marines, they remembered the same scene when the man cut off Gorosei, 5 elders' 2 fingers. The smiles, thinking of this, they were shocked and immediately retracted their fingers. "What are you doing here?" Seeing that the pirate ships were all emerging from the fog, Kong's eyes narrowed. Although his face was calm, his heart was filled with turbulent waves, and he wanted to die. Why is the enemy always narrow? It turns out that Marshal Kong brought everyone to go home. Zhang Yang pretended to be shocked, but the pirates were puzzled. This is Marineford, where would Marine return if he didn't return here? But the pirates didn't talk too much. The next moment, Zhang Yang slapped his head and said, "I forgot. After all, Marshal Kong is old and has a poor memory. I just said that I remembered that I reminded you before the war. If you go back, you should go to the Holy Land Mariajoy. After all, Marineford probably doesn't belong to Marine anymore." "Did I say that?" Zhang Yang said with a smile. There was a hint of joking in his eyes. "What the hell, Marineford isn't Marine, is it your pirates? It won't take long for you to be arrogant. If you don't wake up, go back to sleep and stop talking nonsense here." Marine looked resentful. Since there was one person taking the lead, they were not afraid of anything. They all scolded in unison, but when they thought of Zhang Yang's strength, they scolded them in a measured way, avoiding words such as victory and defeat, strength. Kong stood there. The words of the people around him did not enter his mind. At this time, he finally remembered what Zhang Yang had said to himself before the war, and what he had called Zephyr. Marine should change the dynasty. The more he thought about it, the more frightened he became. Kong's forehead was even covered in cold sweat. Especially in combination with the scene just before the door of justice, the credibility of Zhang Yang's words was getting higher and higher, and Kong's face gradually became ugly. At this time, not only Marine was in after shouting, the pirates also roared. I didn't see why we came here, just to overturn Marineford. Do you understand that taking the mountain is the king? Gorose, 5 elders ran away in dismay. What kind of capital do you use to be arrogant here? Stop pretending to be a wolf with a big tail, little lamb, ha ha ha. The sarcastic laughter made the Marines look ugly, and they were not reconciled, but the pirates were telling the truth, and they couldn't refute them. Captain, I suggest a fight. I've never seen Marine look so suffocated, not to mention how cool it is. Let's be a big bad wolf once and eat the little lambs, ha ha ha. Hearing similar words, the Marines only felt their faces red, and their eyes were red, and they let out a series of roars. At this moment, there was not even an order from their superiors, so they directly raised their guns and fired away. Come on, get close to the warship, get ready to fight on the ship. As the bombs continued to explode, more than a dozen pirate ships approached straight ahead despite the sound of the sound. Seeing Marine like this, the Marines didn't care about anything, as if they were losing their minds, and at this moment they were also driving the warships forward. Going away, even if the vice admirals ordered it, and even if Kong recovered in time to stop it, it was unavoidable that this scene would happen. Stop all the fucking. Do you want me to kill you all together? The artillery fire continued, and seeing that the two sides were about to fight again, Zhang Yang's face turned cold, and when the low voice accompanied the spirit pressure, everyone's movements were paused. Looking at the man who was the source of the voice, Marine was a little frightened, and when he swallowed a mouthful of saliva, he put down his weapons, trembling with fear, for fear that the other party would directly obliterate him if he was unhappy. The same is true for the pirates. After all, Zhang Yang's strength is still there. Although they are a group, the cooperative relationship is extremely weak. If you kill them, you will also kill them. Seeing that both sides are quiet, Zhang Yang is very satisfied. This is what he wants. After all, Zhang Yang is very clear that the opponents of the previous war were not all the forces of the world government, or that 1/3 of them did not reach it. Once the world government gave up part of its interests and control and concentrated its combat power, then it would really be over. After all, Impel Down is just a stronghold, not a huge territory. Secondly, although under the slogan of overthrowing the world, only the Fishman clan and the new revolutionary army really accepted Zhang Yang's rule. As for the other pirates, they each had their own thoughts. If Zhang Yang wanted to take them under his command, he would only deterrence with powerful force. Marshal Sengoku, do you want to fight? If you win, I will let people open the door of justice and let you in. After all, it is your former home. But if you lose. After a pause, there was a gloomy look on his face, and Zhang Yang made a gesture of wiping his neck with his hand. Don't blame me for being too late. Little lambs, if you have the ability to pick up the trick, come on. Shushu will never ravage you tilde. Boss Reaper, let's go straight to it. At this moment, the roles of prey and hunter have directly become the past. The pirates looked at Marine as if they were looking at weak and naked women, making all Marines blushing and angry, but when they saw Zhang Yang, but had to grit his teeth helplessly. Don't be a fucking bullshit, believe it or not, I'll make you roast lamb now. Zhang Yang gave the pirates a vicious look, and everyone shuddered, and immediately fell silent. This is a blatant threat. Kong scolded inwardly, his face ashen, but for a while he didn't know how to answer Zhang Yang's words, saying that if he beat him, he was looking for a beating, and if he said that he didn't fight, he was admitting cowardice, which immediately made Kong in a dilemma. At this moment, what happened from the beginning to the end quickly flashed in Kong's mind, and he finished it as quickly as a picture. Until a certain moment, Kong's face sank, and when he looked at Zhang Yang on the opposite deck, he said that everyone should be. They were all shocked, and some words couldn't react. Damn, I don't do it anymore, how do you like to go? Chapter 194 Sheep into the Tiger's Mouth. Kong jumped directly from the warship as soon as he finished speaking, and broke out in a very fast shave on the sea. When a waterline was raised behind his back, his figure gradually disappeared in front of everyone. Cough cough. Zhang Yang coughed dryly and looked a little weird. He didn't expect that. Just saying that, Kong just ran away, sighed, and felt helpless. The pirates were all shocked, and the voices of taking a breath of cold air continued to sound, and when they looked at Zhang Yang, it was like looking at a god. The expressions of everyone in Marine became more and more horrified. When they looked at Zhang Yang, they didn't know what expression to show. This devil has already made many senior Marines leave. Even if possible, at this moment, their eyes will be full of Zhang Yang. Kill. After that, there was no accident. The rest of Marine reluctantly joined Zhang Yang's group and headed towards Marineford. On the other side, in the hall of the Holy Land Mariajoy, with the return of the two Gorosei, 5 elders, the atmosphere in the hall was extremely suppressed, and when the eyes of the other 3 old men fell on the palm of the broken finger, they all stood up suddenly. The body, startled and said, "George, what's going on?" It was chopped down by Zhang Yang. Although his voice was flat, when his eyes fell on the 2 fingers he was missing, there was a gloomy look in his eyes. Hearing this answer, the eyes of the other 3 suddenly shrank, and the old man holding the first-generation ghost was even more incredible. He opened his mouth. That little devil has grown to such a degree now. Is he dead? The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders spoke solemnly, and as soon as these words came out, the remaining 2 Gorosei, 5 elders cast their gazes over. Obviously this is extremely important. You still have to ask him about this. I really don't understand why he ordered to leave. Even if we continue to fight, we may kill that kid. It was the short Gorosei, 5 elders, who was sitting heavily on the sofa at the moment, and said to the white-bearded George in a bad tone, "After all, they have the highest power in the world, but this battle actually showed weakness and retreated, which really made the face extremely bad. Ugly. I know that his strength has improved to such a level in a short period of time. We can't let him continue to grow, but I can't do anything about it. You said it's only possible, but it's also possible that both of us were obliterated by him. You just say he the strength revealed. Is there any possibility of this?" George's tone was low, and his face was a little angry. He didn't want to leave, but he could only do that. After talking about the battle, the audience fell into silence. In particular, the Gorosei, 5 elders who held the first generation of ghosts were even more shocked. He once killed Zhang Yang, but it was like pinching an ant to death, but the strength displayed at this moment was so terrifying, and gradually, his face became more and more ugly. Yizhang Yudao, what do you think we should do now? The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders asked the Gorosei, 5 elders with the knife. Yudao Yizhang directly inserted the first-generation ghost into the scabbard, with a cold look on his face. If that's the case, then I'll kill him again. I'll go with you. The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders, twisting his neck, spoke slowly. No need, I'm enough alone. After the words were finished, Yudao Yizhang walked straight out of the hall. George looked at his back with a solemn expression. You really don't need to go with him. The strength of that man is not something we can speculate. The white curly-haired Gorosei, 5 elders paused, and then said, what we have to do now is to destroy all branches of the Revolutionary Army, including the headquarters. In addition, all the pirates who escaped from Impel Down must also be killed. Dai, let Kong take charge of this matter. As for Fujitora, they have also given it to Marine, and let them set off for Marineford immediately. After the orders were issued, the 3 Fujitora also took the world government's ship to Marineford, but what Gorosei, 5 elders did not expect was Kong has left, and the Marine headquarters is now beyond the control of the world government. They don't know what happened to the world government. There are so many people sitting in the conference room of Marineford at the moment. Zephyr is in the first seat. The weird thing is that he is the only one who is Marine, and everyone else is famous characters, but they are basically pirates. They are Zhang Yang, Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Waldo, Red the Aloof, Revolutionary Army Leader Long, Red Hair, Neptune. Marine and pirates can sit in Marineford's conference room for a meeting. I'm afraid Zephyr never thought of this scene. Although he doesn't kill pirates, it doesn't mean he doesn't hate it, so his old face has been stern since the beginning. This time, our purpose is to implement further actions of multi-party cooperation. In short, no one knew the content of this meeting except the people present, and a strict confidentiality system was implemented. After the conversation lasted for half a day, the phone bug in front of Kong rang. Marshal, Fujitora Ryokugyu Mamasagi, it is said that the order of the world government, transferred to Marine headquarters, is currently in front of the door of justice. Is it released? What did the world government send them for? Zephyr was taken aback. The old Thingarose, 5 elders, I'm afraid you don't know that Marineford is no longer their territory. This is sending sheep into the tiger's mouth, ha ha ha. Golden Lion smoked a cigar, let out a puff of smoke, and laughed. Teacher Zephyr, let me go, I have my own way. The world government's ship quickly passed through the gate of justice. In addition to the officials of the world government, there are 3 figures on the ship at this moment. Naturally, it is Fujitora Ryokugyu Mamasagi. The picture is extremely shocking every time I think of it. As they approached Marineford, the world government official in a suit suddenly spoke in horror. Quickly inform the world government, a large number of pirates have invaded Marineford. What? Hearing this voice, the faces of the 3 of them changed. Although Fujitora couldn't see it, his ears were moving at this moment, while the other 2 were all stunned when they saw dozens of pirate ships docked at the port. It was shocking, especially when it landed on Whitebeard's red-haired pirate ship, and his heart was extremely horrified. As this, to capture Marineford. Chapter 195, The Enemy Arrives. Prepare to bombard. The officers in suits quickly galloped with the ship, busy, and as time passed, they gradually approached the port, and at this moment, an official who seemed to have an identity shouted, "Fight!" Quote. Boom boom boom. With the roar of the fort on the ship, black shells continued to blast towards the pirate ship in the port, and at the same time, Fujitora was also VV's sword, and the meteorite broke through the atmosphere and headed towards the pirate ship in the port. Including the pirates smashed over. Just as the pirates in the port panicked, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them when the cannonballs fell, and when Zhang Yang raised his left hand, a strong hurricane suddenly spewed out from his palm, directly knocking several cannonballs into the air. Go! At the same time, Zhang Yang slashed it with one knife, and when the fire and smoke emerged, the meteorite was directly divided into 2 and smashed into the sea on both sides of the port. Death. Everyone on the world government warship opened their mouths in horror, especially the eyes of the 3 of Fujitora shrank suddenly. This man's strength in Impel Down is completely worthy of the title of Death God. Are you going to leave or stay now? When Zhang Yang's whole body of spiritual pressure surged out, it was like a gust of wind, and when all of them were suppressed on Fujitora's body, it made them feel as if they were carrying a mountain, and their breathing was rapid. The candidates for the world recruitment have already taken office in Marine. I believe you are not clear about the actions of the world government. Because of this incident, countless high-level Marines have been forced to leave. Now first I'm the Marine Marshal, and the entire Marine will never obey. Order of the world government. Quote. Zephyr came over, and when the voice came out, the 3 of Fujitora were stunned, and the officials of the world government exclaimed at this moment, Zephyr, how dare you betray the world government? However, before the words fell, under Zhang Yang's powerful momentum, the person who spoke immediately died violently. Others wanted to say something, but when they saw Zhang Yang's gaze, they all swallowed it. I'm not difficult for you, whether to leave or join. I just hope you don't become enemies with us. But before Zephyr's words were finished, everyone's expressions suddenly changed. At this moment, not far in front of them, a shocking slash appeared suddenly, and even the sea water was divided into two. Marshall, not good, someone cut the door of justice with one knife. Zephyr took the phone bug in his hand, but the words that came out made everyone stunned. Their eyes widened, and Zhang Yang's expression became more solemn than ever. Everyone's mind can't help but ask a question: who is it? Time went back to a few minutes ago. Suddenly, in the sea in front of the Gate of Justice, a wooden boat floated on the boundless sea. On the boat, there was an old man in a white Taoist uniform with round eyes. Sheathed long knife. The canoe had no oars, as if it was fluttering with the wind, until at a certain moment, it gradually approached the door of justice, and at this time, the relevant personnel in the control room also discovered this scene, and the shouts rang out with the horns from the outside: "Irrelevant people, get out of here quickly." No way. However, there was no response when the other party fell, and then the person in charge was about to speak with a phone bug, but the open mouth was frozen like this, and everyone present was dumbfounded when they saw the scene on the screen. The look is full of incredible. The old man on the wooden boat, when he was about to come to the door of justice, did not hesitate at all, and immediately pulled out the long knife in the scabbard, and slashed forward. A huge blood-colored knife aura suddenly burst out, split a crack in the sea. After the door of justice was passed through by the sword energy, not only the door was quickly split in half, but even the sea area behind it was split in half, which was extremely shocking. After doing all this, the old man took the knife back into the scabbard, and the canoe slowly walked towards the door of justice. And until a certain moment, when the port appeared in front of him, when there were many ships and people in the port, the old man showed a sneer, and at this moment he pulled out the long sword again, and a slash sounded. A blood-red sword chi appeared again and directed towards smashed into the port. Rewind. Everyone saw the wooden boat, and when the sword chi came, Zhang Yang shouted, and when his eyes moved slightly, he found that the sword chi was obviously coming towards him. Without the slightest hesitation, the blade in his hand suddenly burst into flames. Amidst the flames, a flame of sword energy was instantly cut out. When the two sword chi collided, the sea danced like a group of demons, and in the stalemate in midair, the sword chi exploded. At this moment, the canoe had already appeared in front of everyone, and they could even clearly see the figure on the canoe. Gorosei, 5 elders. When they saw this figure, everyone opened their mouths in horror, and the dragon horse on the side was even tighter when he held the autumn rain in his hand, his eyes staring at the figure. I didn't expect that the ants in the past have grown to such a degree now. Yu Dao Yizhang received a call from Gorosei, 5 elders halfway through. The content is nothing more than Kong leaving Marine. Now Marineford has cut off all communication signals with the world government, and has defected, and the most important thing is to publicize all their people are in Marineford at the moment. Knowing this, there is a scene where Yu Dao Yizhang directly splits the door of justice. I didn't expect that you would have the courage to die alone. When he saw that the visitor was an enemy, Zhang Yang sneered, "It's fortunate that you came to court death, otherwise you'd have to trouble me to run." When the sound fell, the flowing blade in Zhang Yang's hand suddenly swung like a fire, and when Benkai turned into a remnant fire sword, the rising fire smoke was quickly collected in the sword, and the whole body erupted with momentum, as if it turned into a palm, and suddenly moved towards the sword. Yu Dao Yizhang came to suppress him. This blow, as Zhang Yang had expected, had no effect. When Yu Dao Yizhang suddenly stepped forward with the scabbard in his right hand, the aura of repression dissipated directly. "Do you still recognize me?" The next moment, the figure of Ryoma suddenly burst out from the crowd, and the momentum of the whole body climbed up, like the sword of a man, and the whole body was filled with countless sword chi and sword intent, as if he was a sharp sword. Chapter 196 Ryoma Obsession ends. It turned out to be a spirit body. Yu Dao Yizhang didn't care about the rushing Ryoma at all, but after hearing Ryoma's words, he looked at it seriously, and then he spoke casually, with a hint of disdain in his expression. There are too many ants under the knife, so I can remember it. Few of them were. After displaying the unity of human and sword, the surrounding of the dragon and horse has become a vacuum field, and the sword energy and sword intent are madly swept in it. It was swallowed up in an instant. Boss, Longma is not the old man's opponent. You can't let him fight, or you will die. Enel immediately said anxiously, but when he saw that Zhang Yang didn't move, he was anxious and was about to make a move, but was stopped by Zhang Yang, only to hear Zhang Yang say, "That is the knot in Longma's heart, and even more so. Their grievances, you can let him go." Zhang Yang saw all this in his eyes. Even if he knew that Longma had no chance of winning, he did not stop Longma's attack, because Zhang Yang understood that it was his strong belief in revenge that kept Longma alive. And even if Longma is dead, Zhang Yang will not shoot. This is respect for a swordsman. Condensing the spirit. Longma's whole body condensed, and when he spit it out lightly, he saw that the sword energy and sword intent that were swept away slowly converged, condensed, and finally merged into the body. Heart bend. In addition, after the 3 songs of the combination of life and sword, there was not a trace of breath flowing out of Longma's body, and from that moment on, Longma seemed to have entered the realm of nothingness, and the world was integrated with him. Not too weak. Yu Dao Yizhang suddenly let out a small yawn, a little surprised by Long Ma's kendo, and then said after a pause, "However, it's still just ants." Different from the Gorosei, 5 elders Yu Dao Yizhang, everyone else felt the power of Ryoma at this moment, and even Whitebeard and others looked terrified. Zhang Yang did not expect that he still underestimated the strength of Ryoma. When the figure rushed forward from the sea, Longma slashed the black knife Chushui forward at will, and suddenly a long crack appeared in the sea, and at the same time, a shocking sword chi shot towards Yu Dao Yizhang. Peng! Yu Dao Sanzang didn't even pull out his sword in the face of this sword chi, and he easily blocked the move with the scabbard. Then, just as the figure of Longma was approaching, a strong impact suddenly burst out from the scabbard, swept away towards the dragon horse. But at this moment, a tornado of sword energy suddenly erupted from Ryoma's body. With the explosion, the powerful attack force was abruptly resolved. "Boss, isn't this your move, Torch?" Enel's eyes were curious, but he admired the move. "I think there may be hope for Ryoma." Zhang Yang didn't say a word. Ryoma would use his previous moves. He knew it very well. At the moment watching Ryoma Yijian's sword collide with Yu Dao Yizhang's scabbard, although it seems that the two are evenly matched, but if anyone notices Gorosei, 5 elders don't feel that way when their feet on the canoe are always moving in a small circle. At this moment, Ryoma even released Song Ming, and the tornado sword chi raged around Yu Dao Yizhang's body, spinning rapidly, as if to tear him apart. "It's really boring." When Yu Dao Yizhang's voice came out from the tornado of sword energy, the sky was clearly sunny, but there was a bloody thunder. It appeared directly in front of the dragon horse. Ryoma's complexion changed drastically, and before he could even react, Yu Dao Yizhang stabbed forward with the first-generation gouche in his hand, and pulled it out again. It was Ryoma's figure that was gleaming with blood at this moment, of course, not to describe blood, but to describe color. Hundreds of years of obsession are finally over. I must avenge me. The blood-red dragon horse's face suddenly softened. When he looked at Zhang Yang, there was a sense of relief. When the words fell, he closed his eyes peacefully. What does that mean? Everyone was stunned for a moment and didn't quite understand, but the next moment there were no symptoms, but Ryoma's spiritual body exploded with a bang, which shocked many people. At this time, Zhang Yang sighed and took a step forward. "In this way, I have no reason not to kill you." At this moment, Yu Dao Yizhang also put away the casualness in his expression, and turned it into a dignified look. Although he said that, Zhang Yang had to pay attention to his strength now. Blurred semi-complete state. Without going through the first few steps, Zhang Yang's entire body appeared with bones at this moment, and even his small face had truly turned into bones, just like a real skeleton man. When gushing out a powerful momentum, Yang directly Bankai, holding the residual fire sword in his hand. And Yu Dao Yizhang Clogs directly stepped on the boat and jumped up, almost indistinguishable from Zhang Yang, they turned into an afterimage and rushed forward. When the two collided with knives in the sky, the sound of the knives echoed, and the afterimage of the place gradually dissipated, and the sound of the collision turned into ripples that spread all over the place. So strong. This Gorosei, 5 elders are clearly stronger than the two we've encountered. This realm is no longer within our reach. When everyone's eyes were looking at the mid-air, they couldn't help but take a deep breath. At this moment, they could not find the trace of the two with their naked eyes, but from the intensive sound of collision, it was certain that in a short period of time, the two fought for an unknown number of rounds. When the figures of Zhang Yang and Yudao Yizhang appeared in everyone's sight, they were already staggered with two swords. When they collided, a ripple swept across the square in an instant, but the next moment, both sides jumped back and opened the distance again. They bumped into each other, and at this time, the figures of the two disappeared again. The next moment, when the two of them appeared on the sea at the same time, their eyes slammed, and when they slashed with a knife, a shocking crack was left on the sea surface. Chapter 197 The Strongest Battle. Peng. After swallowing up the flames of Zhang Yang, the remaining majestic sword Qi came towards Zhang Yang with a powerful gust of wind, but with a wave of Zhang Yang's residual fire sword. When the sword Qi was dissolved, the figure of Zhang Yang also retreated. Step. Although I have to admit that you have indeed become stronger. But, it's still not enough. Yudao Yizhang's Vietnam War became more and more frightening. He didn't expect that Zhang Yang's strength had increased to such a level. When he recalled that killing Zhang Yang not long ago was like pinching an ant to death, the killing intent in Yudao Yizhang's eyes was even stronger. As the words fell, Yudao Yizhang's whole body disappeared for a moment. Zhang Yang raised his brows lightly, a sense of crisis sprouted out of his heart, and the hand holding the residual fire sword couldn't help but tighten, and the fire smoke quietly shrank into the blade, and the surrounding hot high temperature was also at this moment gradually dissipated. Rumbling. In the next moment, a blood-colored saber aura suddenly erupted from Yudao Yizhang's body, tens of meters, hundreds of meters, thousands of meters, and even tens of thousands of meters, and suddenly burst into the clouds in the sky. However, there is blood and thunder permeating the air, and with the continuous roar, the sky is suddenly cloudless at this moment. Gollum. At this moment, everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and their figures could not help but step back, opening their mouths in shock. It's too strong. This kind of person, one hits our group. It doesn't feel like the previous two Gorosei, 5 elders at all. But as the saying goes, experts look at the doorway. At this moment, the eagle-eyed, red-haired, and Vista-led swordsmen watched this scene. Their hearts were extremely shocked. Their eyes shrank but they were silent, but when they saw what happened next after the scene, he couldn't help but startled and said, "How is it possible, how far he has come in terms of kendo attainments? Under him, we can't get past a few tricks at all." The next moment, the shocking huge sword energy shrank suddenly, and all rushed into Yudao Yizhang's body, but for a moment, every gesture exuded a fierce sword energy. His eyes closed slightly. Yudao Yizhang stepped on the sea surface. There was a vortex underneath. Peng. When Yudao Yizhang opened his eyes, it seemed as if a sharp edge that was hard to see was shot out from it. When the figure came straight to the publicity, the only place he passed, the sea oscillated, and there was a residual sword energy on it. As the void twists, a black gap is about to crack open. Bound Road 81 breaks the air. Zhang Yang was startled, and the other party came to him in a blink of an eye. In a hurry, when Zhang Yang's left-hand bone palm burst out with spiritual energy, a huge defensive wall suddenly formed in front of him, but the next moment, when a cut mark appeared, the huge defensive wall was broken in an instant. In the blink of an eye, Yudao Yizhang jumped and killed the first-generation Gush. Even if Zhang Yang's mind moved, his spiritual power turned into 5 beams of light that penetrated into Yudao Yizhang's body and tried to restrain his figure, but it was still only a matter of time. In vain, in Zhang Yang's shocking shock, the beam of light was instantly smashed by the raging sword energy that lingered around him. Peng. Zhang Yang immediately raised the sword and stood in front of his chest, temporarily blocking it with the body of the sword, but the raging sword chi was like a sharp knife slashing on Zhang Yang's body, leaving cracks after another, although there was no blood flowing from the body, but the pain in it made Zhang Yang clench his dense, sharp teeth and spit out a mouthful of blood. Go away! Zhang Yang roared, and a strong fire smoke suddenly wrapped Zhang Yang's whole body. When an explosion sounded, Yu Dao Yizang was directly shaken out, and at the same time, the heat directly evaporated the seawater on the sea surface. A thick layer. When this wave of hot air turns into ripples and sweeps in all directions, all pirates are able to detect the terrifying high temperature in it. If they encounter it, even if armament hockey is used, the burn is certain, so, let alone ordinary people, touch it. Not to mention death. At this moment, the pirates were in a panic. Golden Lion, Whitebeard and other powerful pirates, including Zephyr, took a step forward and blocked the terrifying high-temperature impact. Totally unreal. Zhang Yang's figure moved at this moment, facing Yu Dao Yizang's tyranny. His whole body was undergoing tremendous changes, and the most obvious thing was that the long flowing hair grew again, and the bones of the whole body had black flesh and blood bursting out, wrapping around the whole body when he was shriveled again, a black death tyrant dressed suddenly. What kind of mutation is this? Even the shape of the residual fire sword after Bankai, the chief captain's katana, has changed. Even under Kuchiki Byakuya's dumbfounded expression, the appearance of the residual fire sword in his hand has changed. The blade is like a dark curtain descending, and it is wider, like a sickle. At this moment, Zhang Yang's whole body exudes aura, giving people a majestic death aura that only the dead can overflow. Except the punishment of death. When Zhang Yang Hansheng opened his mouth, the black sickle in his hand suddenly threw out, and black flames were burning all over his body during the rotation, and like a hot wheel, it was directly crushed towards Yu Dao Yizang. Gorosei, 5 elders looked at Zhang Yang at this time, and the black hot wheel's eyes suddenly shrank. At this moment, he felt a crisis. Although it was not a life and death crisis, one must know that a person of his level, I haven't felt this way in a long time. Boom. Gorosei, 5 elders mentioned the first generation of ghosts, and also threw them forward. When the blood-colored sword chi enveloped the blade, it turned into a blood-colored beast in the dimness, and the long-fanged grin seemed to devour the wind and fire wheel. Go! And just as the two collided, an earth-shattering roar suddenly swept through the 4 directions, and the blood-colored light and the black firelight became the swan song between heaven and earth at this moment. It became the only scene left in the world. This punch should be interest. Just as Gorosei, 5 elders threw the first generation of ghosts out, Zhang Yang's reversal appeared directly in front of Gorosei, 5 elders, withered like the palm of the god of death, and suddenly held it, and a punch became Yu Dao Yizang's pupil. All the time, zoom in suddenly, zoom in again. Even if Gorosei, 5 elders blocked the punch with his arms in time, under this punch, his figure still flew upside down when the waves were raised. Chapter 198 Death Seal. What kind of blur is this? Not only does it affect Zanpakuto, but the strength that erupts at this moment is not weaker than Captain Yamamoto at all. Everyone including Kuchiki Byakuya was dumbfounded when they looked at Zhang Yang. They didn't expect that Zhang Yang's strength could be improved to a higher level. Even at this moment, those pirates with ulterior motives were all caught by Zhang Yang at this moment. Showing strength and convincing, of course, this is only temporary, everything depends on the final result. This son, we must not let him grow up. The expression of Yu Dao Yizang, who flew out of the figure, was also extremely sensational. After Zhang Yang's body changed, his eyes were filled with fear for the first time, and the killing intent became more intense. He had already thought about it. Today, no matter what, kill Zhang Yang. Because Yu Dao Yizang was knocked out by Zhang Yang, his momentum fluctuated in an instant, so the blood-colored beast that was fighting with the black flame hot wheel in midair was knocked out directly. Zhang Yang's dry palm stretched out, and the black sickle seemed to be in touch with Zhang Yang. The hot wheel, which had continued to rush forward, turned a corner at this time, and the hilt fell into Zhang Yang's hand, which was tightly held by him. "Old man, today I have you without me, and I have you without you." In Zhang Yang's eyes, a strong murderous intent suddenly emerged. With a wave of his sleeve robe, he held a black sickle and turned into a black shadow. When the black sickle was cut out, a black flame was fierce. He galloped towards Yudao Yizhang, and when he was still in the air, this black flame directly turned into a tornado, and the whistling approached. Zhang Yang didn't plan to rely solely on Songming to gain the upper hand, so even if Yudao Yizhang swung a knife, the blood-colored knife aura cut through the black flame tornado, his eyes still did not fluctuate at all. "If that's all you're relying on, then just die." When Yudao Yizhang burst out with sword energy violently, the sea surface was turbulent. At the same time, the first-generation Gush was thrown into the air, and when the blood on the sword body bloomed to the strongest, the sky suddenly heard Dao Dao sword whistling. Sound. Boom. Rumbling. 1 is divided into 2, 2 is divided into 4. Under the continuous splitting, the blood-colored longsword has been directly transformed into thousands of swords, as if it were a fantasy and a reality. When the thunder appeared in the clouds, it was like a dragon shadow, looming, and the roar continued to resound. "Kill!" Yudao Yizhang shouted violently, and the blood-red rays of light fell from the sky in an instant. When all of them shot towards Zhang Yang like meteors, it seemed that they had experienced a long blood-colored meteor shower, leaving an extremely splendid stroke in the sky. "Boss, let's help you." Looking at the shocking scene in the sky, Enel was the first to speak, and then many people were rushing to appeal. With the momentum of the whole body breaking out at this moment, they wanted to make a move, but Whitebeard blocked them with words. "That old man, you can kill Zhang Yang once, do we need to take action in the vengeance of life and death?" Everyone's actions were a meal, and Zhang Yang's expression was obviously not afraid, and in the next moment, there was a sneer in their ears. "If you think I'm just like that, then go to hell." The black sickle in Zhang Yang's hand burst into an unprecedented black glow at this moment. Just as thousands of blood swords shot towards Zhang Yang, a huge shadow suddenly appeared behind Zhang Yang. This sudden change made everyone all stunned. "To make a fool of yourself." Yudao Yizhang looked at this huge shadow that was constantly clear, frowned slightly, and stretched out his hand to point forward. "I named this move the Seal of Death." There was a frenzy in Zhang Yang's eyes. His full state of phantom was like this. In fact, Zhang Yang already knew about it when he was resurrected before, but due to strength issues and other factors, Zhang Yang has never been able to use it. After absorbing the residual strength of Captain Yamamoto, Zhang Yang could only use the semi-complete state of blur, and after that battle, Zhang Yang was actually improved, and now he can finally use the final form of blur. And since he was able to transform himself into not only the god of death, but also with the Zanpakudo, Zhang Yang has been brewing this move in his heart. Why is this giant shadow so similar to Zhang Yang? It's obviously a person. It's just magnified 10 times. What's the use of it? Can it be used to block the attack? The giant figure behind Zhang Yang actually took shape very quickly, but for a moment, when everyone saw the face of this giant figure, they couldn't help but be startled, and then there was a hint of doubt. This giant shadow is the upper half of the body that is completely blurred. Although it looks extremely illusory, all parts of the body are very clear. It also holds a black sickle. Boom boom boom. Just as thousands of blood-colored long swords burst in front of Zhang Yang, when Yan pierced Zhang Yang into a honeycomb in the next moment, a cold color flashed in Zhang Yang's dark pupils, and suddenly there was a black crack between his eyebrows. At the same time, the projection behind Zhang Yang showed a crack on his forehead. In just a moment, the crack suddenly opened, and a turbulent strong suction burst out from it, and all the sword rain came straight to the projected crack at this moment. How is it possible? There was a look of fear in Yudao Yizhang's eyes. At this moment, as the crack opened, his figure was also approaching forward, and it seemed that he would also be sucked into it. Puff! Yudao Yizhang burst out all the sword energy in his body at this moment, the powerful impact directly stalemate with the suction force, but in the blink of an eye, the two opposing forces exploded instantly. Yudao Yizang spit out a mouthful of blood, and the figure directly it flew out and smashed into the sea. When all the sword rain fell into the crack, it was like being sealed, and the huge death god behind Zhongyang dissipated in the next moment, and at the same time, a light flashed on his forehead, as if there was a dragon flying and phoenix dancing, but it was hidden in the next moment. Since you have escaped the catastrophe, you will not be so lucky in the future. Chapter 199th Double Return. Bang bang bang. A blood thunder like a giant python with many blood-colored thunders smashed towards Zhongyang at this moment. The blood light was towering, and all the thunders seemed to be transformed into a desolate blood dragon at this moment, and the roar continued, like a dragon roar. Space is still. The corner of Zhongyang's mouth murmured. It seemed that the surrounding space was solidified, and the blood dragon stopped on top of Zhongyang's head, but no matter what, it couldn't be smashed down. Tips for carving insects. A sneer appeared on the corner of Yudao Yizang's mouth, breaking through the bondage and appearing directly in front of Zhongyang. The human giant blood dragon seemed to be attracted, and flowed directly into the first generation of ghosts in his hand, containing the power of terrifying thunder. Chopping forward, there was an endless rumbling sound. Do you know what death is? Suddenly, a sentence came out of Zhongyang's mouth, causing Yudao to hide for a while, and a faint bad feeling rose up, but at this time the arrow was on the string, and he had to send it. If you want to be born, you will be born. If you want to die, you will die. The person who controls the power of life and death is the god of death. Even though Yudao Yizang had already brought his sword and cane to the front, Zhongyang's expression did not change at all, and his voice had no emotion. The right eyelid kept beating, and the sense of crisis in Yudao Yizang's heart was getting heavier and heavier, and his pupils flashed, like the first-generation ghost covered by a blood dragon, slashing towards Zhongyang. It seems that you still don't understand. Then since you want to kill me, then kill me. While everyone was stunned, Zhongyang's hands hung down weakly, and he gave up resistance at this moment of life and death, and let Yudao Yizang's long knife slashed from his head from top to bottom. Yudao Yizang frowned, even though he saw Zhongyang's body being smashed into the sea with his own eyes, but when he thought of his strange speech and behavior before, Yudao Yizang felt that something was wrong. At this moment, everyone's expressions changed, and they didn't understand what Zhongyang's last move was about. Did he know that he couldn't beat him, so he was willing to fall? Give up resistance? No. Just when everyone couldn't think of a reason, Yudao Yizang stood in midair and looked at the sea below his feet in silence. A familiar voice sounded at this moment, fell in Yudao Yizang's ears, let his body shocked. Remember this scene. One after another black chi rose from the bottom of the sea, and the voice also sounded, on that small island, that's how you killed me. Gollum. The black chi kept rising and gradually gathered in front of Yudao Yizang. In just a few breaths, the black chi turned into a flamboyant appearance, the same as before. Yudao Yizang looked at the intact figure in front of him, his eyes suddenly shrinking, swallowing a mouthful of saliva in horror. That day, you killed me once. I just gave you another chance. As the saying goes, again and again, no more. Zhongyang looked at Yudao Yizang expressionlessly. Even if you want to kill me in the future, I'm afraid. There is no such possibility. The black sickle in the right hand melted directly at this moment, as if a thick black glove was placed on Zhongyang's dry palm. Impossible, impossible. When he sensed an aura of death, the figure of Yudao Yizang in midair suddenly staggered, and involuntarily took a few steps back. You can't increase your strength to such a level in an instant. There is nothing impossible in the world. And the biggest impossibility is that when the god of death is no longer afraid of death, in fact, he himself has become a person who can truly control the life and death of the world. Yudao Yizang didn't understand this sentence, but he didn't need to understand it. When he heard this sentence in his ear, he was shocked and saw Zhongyang in front of him, and a dark sword suddenly appeared in his right hand. All the fears in Yudao Yizang's heart erupted at this moment, and he was about to run away. How did you kill me that day? Now, how do I kill you? Zhang Yang slashed down with a sword from the air, but there was no burst of sword energy, but it was so inexplicable. The figure of Yudao Yizhang, who had already rushed so far, suddenly stopped in the air. His expression was full of inconceivable. Down in an instant, his body was directly divided into two and smashed towards the sea. However, Zhang Yang stretched out his hand and waved, and the two halves of Yudao Yizhang's corpse turned into a black shadow and smashed heavily on the port. The next day, the whole world was boiling, and the focus was on one person, Zhang Yang. No, Gorosei, 5 elders really died in Marineford. Although I don't know what his strength is, the person who holds the most powerful power in the world should be very strong. Who on earth dares to come to Marine headquarters to kill Gorosei, 5 elders? In front of the screens all over the world, a crowd of people gathered in darkness. At this moment, they saw the old man who fell on the floor and his body was divided into two, even the old man with his eyes wide open. It was difficult to calm down for a while. Everyone, we meet again. When Zhang Yang appeared in the picture, everyone was stunned, and when they remembered the previous events, they were all shocked. Zhang Yang continued, I guess you can all guess, yes, this old thing is what I killed. I'm going to tell you some good news today. Zhang Yang, the mysterious Isho, continued, Gorosei, 5 elders have lived for hundreds of years, and why do we live less than 100 years? In order to improve the lifespan of people in this world as a whole, I will conduct an autopsy on this old man's corpse. Experiment in hopes of finding the secret to longevity. Quote. Moreover, the corpses of the other 4 Gorosei, 5 elders will be reunited with him soon. At that time, we will not only conduct an autopsy to find out the secret of longevity, but also transform them into androids to protect the peace of this world. This live broadcast was very short, and when the screen turned black, everyone was still sluggish. The first sound was made. That, I remember. Zhang Yang's corpse also had the idea of being transformed into an android by the world government, although it failed. Is it impossible? He is going to double it back now. Chapter 200 The Operation of Gorosei, 5 Elders. In the hall of the Holy Land Mariajoy, the other 4 Gorosei, 5 elders sat on the sofa in silence, their faces extremely gloomy, and even the shock in their eyes still existed. Yizhang is the strongest among the 5 of us, or in other words, the world's #1 in strength. How can such a person die? They have already seen the content of Zhang Yang's live broadcast, but even if the screen has been dark for a long time, they still can't believe that Yudao Yizhang has been killed. Zhang Yang's corpse that day is the same as Yizhang's current situation. If he really killed Yizhang alone, then, should we consider changing the plan? After all, in front of absolute strength, no matter how many people, it's just cannon fodder. George said. Although he had the upper hand with 1 enemy and 2, he was still a long way from Yizhang based on his strength at that time, and in theory, even if Whitebeard and the others shot together, they still couldn't make up for it. Quote. The short Gorosei, 5 elders, face sank and continued, we still don't know who Yizhang died, who the murderer was, or whether he did it alone. This is the most important point. The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders interrupted him. I can't delay any longer. Yizhang is dead, and the overall strength of our Gorosei, 5 elders is greatly reduced. The immediate urgency is that no matter how many murderers there are, or whether he did it alone, we must eradicate Zhang Yang immediately. This time, the 4 of us are going to take action together. We will definitely get rid of Zhang Yang, and we must not give him another chance to turn over. In addition, the original plan continued to implement. And from this moment on, Gorosei, 5 elders issued a series of orders. Even the world government official in charge of recording, while listening, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The 4 Gorosei, 5 elders, who have lived for hundreds of years and whose minds are self-evident, have only forgotten to give an order, and it is this forgotten order that may soon lead to the world government, which had a strict system and covered the sky with one hand, collapsed suddenly. In other words, this order is not forgotten, but they have not considered it at all, because subconsciously, under the crushing of the 4 of them, Zhang Yang will undoubtedly die, and there is no second life. So, they never thought, what if they died? Today's Marineford is no longer the headquarters of Marine, but perhaps an alliance whose tentative goal is to overthrow the world government. Did something happen? Long was sitting in the conference room and had just connected dozens of calls. Looking at him with an ugly face at the moment, Zhang Yang asked. World government officials headed by CP0 attacked the Revolutionary Army headquarters and other branches with guards. It has now been quickly occupied. Long paused and continued, and I also got a piece of news. The world government has now made a big move, not only cleaning the countries that are on the side of our Revolutionary Army, but even the countries that are allied with them. Ensure absolute obedience to world government control. Zhang Yang's face was also gloomy. Have you finally started to act? And I also got a piece of news that in the country currently in the New World, Dressrosa, the King Riku, who was originally loved by the people, rode a horse like a madman and brutally harvested the lives of the people. Afterwards, the reward Tenryubito Doflamingo, who moved out of the Holy Land Mariajoy and became a pirate, came forward to stop this weird fight, and successfully won the trust of the people, becoming Dressrosa the new king. When the dragon's voice came out, Zephyr frowned. Even if it was Tenryubito before, when will pirates be allowed to become the king of a country? Our secret intelligence organization of the Revolutionary Army has previously reported that Doflamingo is very close to the world government. When the dragon's voice fell, before Zephyr could raise any doubts, Zhang Yang said directly, okay, don't guess anymore. Doflamingo was originally a secret chess game of the world government. Isn't this just a confirmation of the world government's big move? Those old things are nothing more than trying to hold Dressrosa firmly in their hands. Quote. Damn, I'll send someone to Dressrosa in person. Zephyr heard this, he slammed his big hand on the table, and was instantly furious. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and Zhang Yang spoke slowly. Mr. Zephyr, this is not necessary. Now that the world government moves frequently, it is not certain that it will come to attack Marineford and retake the territory, so it is not suitable to send troops to Dressrosa at this time, and Doflamingo and other cadres are strong. Not weak. I also just wanted to go to Dressrosa and have a look at this so-called joker. Do you need me to send someone to follow you? I can go alone. The news that Zhang Yang left Marineford alone on a warship did not take long to reach the ears of the Holy Land Maria Jo Gorose, 5 elders. We are worried that we can't find a chance to deal with him alone, but now he dares to come out alone. Gorose, 5 elders, eyes were filled with a strong murderous intent. This time, he will surely die. Zhang Yang's movement is to go to the New World. Dressrosa is very close to the entrance of the New World. Let Doflamingo pay close attention to Zhang Yang's movement. If necessary, he will be delayed until we come. After giving the order to the man in the black suit, the remaining 4 Gorose, 5 elders got up from the sofa, tightened their suits, and walked straight out of the hall. In the palace of the kingdom of Dressrosa in the New World, Doflamingo was leaning on a chair, wearing sunglasses, enjoying the sunshine, and on the round table next to him was the phone bug he just put down. Zhang Yang. Doflamingo murmured and drank the glass of wine with ice in one gulp. For some reason, there was a murderous intent in his eyes. Surely only the victors can enjoy justice. Tripal, let the cadres get ready. Treble sucked the snot that flowed out of his nose and said, Dafi, are you going to make a big move?